All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Curt Hennig was the best. Changed my mind. I am Mrs. Witchy Perfect. I have a whole bunch of guys with me today, and we're literally going to celebrate Mr. Perfect or Curt Hennig's birthday, which is March 28th. That's when I will be uploading the video on his official birthday. He would have been 66 years old this year if
Rest
he
in peace.
had not self deleted. So, um, we're just gonna go around, introduce yourselves. We'll start with you, Kit, since you're right beside me over here.
Hello, everyone. Cheers and salutations. The last time I was on this show, this channel was just starting. It was a little fledgling, little hatchling, and now almost close to 20,000 subscribers. So, to the viewers and subscribers who are supporting Ms. Witchy Perfect's channel, first of all, number one, shout out to all you wrestling fans out there. You guys are awesome. Please be sure to share her content. She's doing some great stuff, and I'm so proud that I was able to at least help out just a little bit. But all of you, the viewing audience, are helping her build her channel up as you should. And I think it's just great. 10 out of 10. Awesome stuff. And I'm happy. And I can't wait till you get to 1 million. So there you go. And number two, I'm the host of Hard Lens Media. We're live every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Central, YouTube, Rumble, Rockfin, Odyssey, and Kick. We got a show on Can TV as well, Channel 21. And it's just so good to be back here. I know it's a little bit longer intro, but you deserve it. And once again, I am so proud of how far and how fast your channel has grown. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the goal was 20K. We are at 18,433.
The goal is 1 million.
Well, okay, a million, but I haven't decided what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm just going to do a pants check or if I'm going to do, see, I don't have to worry about wearing a kilt because I'm a girl, so I can wear a skirt if I
Yeah,
want
you
to.
can get away with it. Well, you can get away with it. That's fine. That's just fine. You can get away with that. Cancel me.
I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet once we hit 20K. We should be hitting that soon. Probably within the next couple of weeks, maybe just within the next week. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I also tomorrow am going to be doing a show with Grass Fire, who's Matt Collins. We are actually going to talk about our shadow selves. Ooh. So the shadow self. What is
Isn't he
in the
coming on
shadow?
too?
No. I just wanted it to kind of be us because we were kind of like the A team. Kit started me and pushed me in that direction. If it wasn't for
Okay.
Kit, I wouldn't have met you, Angel. So, Angel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Real quick, my name is Angel, as you can see there. I'm the host of Angel in the Afternoon on INN's channel, my own personal channel. I'm the co-host of Pro Wrestling Talk along with Miss Witchy Perfect right here. And I just wanted to thank her for letting me on her channel again. The last time I was on was me, her, and Kit. You know, we had a great time last time, and I expect to do the same thing today. So thank you for having me on, and let's get to it.
Let's get to it. D, go ahead. You're
What's
next.
going on, my people? Yeah, this is the host of Deconstructing Topic Podcast. Today I'm not my best, but you know what? I was like, you know what? Let me recoup. Yesterday, I think I wound up going to a Mexican shop and getting a Pezzo Bismol with a Virgin Maria on it, you know, to help me with my stomach. So I'm like, let me get on my show. I think I met Kid before I met Andrew. I think I reached out to Kid, and with that, then I met Miss Perfect. And you know, going on to your podcast, I love wrestling, but this kind of gave me sane from the nice talk topics that I talk about politics,
Yeah.
philosophy, and all that. And I appreciate it. You're making it happen for sure.
Absolutely. I look at this as a perfect distraction too. There's other things I use to distract myself from talking politics. And when it comes down to wrestling and the great golden era, younger people, you will never know of the wars of ECW,
Yeah,
WCW, and
that.
WWF.
And
You have
WWF.
you
And
don't
like
Yeah.
I said, you should have seen the
Dub.
last night. If you can check it out, check out Pro Wrestling Talk. It is
Last
uploading on
night.
YouTube and on Rumble. Pro Wrestling Talk episode 6. I do get very passionate, very fiery
Hmm.
because I think what the modern wrestling fans miss is the fact that look, there are people out there that do know what the heck they're doing. Okay. That's why we talk about this. This is why I have a podcast because in my opinion, Curt Hennig is the greatest wrestler to ever live. Now, the rest of you, are either Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, or ECW.
Right. EC
And
dub for life.
as far as I know, I had shown Kit and Angel, I think, this video of Kurt being in an indie circuit that was done in an
Yeah.
ECW arena.
Yeah.
Okay. I had actually
Yeah.
just found that
Yeah.
myself. I was actually watching some interviews. The channel is called titlematch.com
Oh, I know that
on
channel.
YouTube. Yes. And
Mhm.
they did, all kinds of, and I'm still watching it. In fact, they just came out with, it's from like 2002, but they did a interview with Barry Windham, and Barry Windham is a second generation as well as Kurt was. So, and Barry Windham was also in the West Texas Rednecks. So there's a connection there. I've been watching all kinds of stuff, interviews with Paul Roma and Percy, who is Paul Bearer.
Percy Pringle. Yep.
Yes, Percy Pringle. I've been watching interviews with Jim Powers and also Dr. D. Schultz. So I've been doing my own little research. I also have been watching the Bobby Heenan interview that they did back in, I think it was 2001, I think. And he does briefly talk about Kurt, that Kurt was he was underrated, and I agree with that people weren't ready for the Mr. Perfect gimmick back in 88 and 89, because I think that he was like a cool heel. He had that charisma about him, and he was cool, and everyone wanted to be him, and they wanted to buy him a beer and get to know him. And so I think that I definitely agree with Bobby Heenan that he was way before his time.
I underrated him. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, I was like, "Oh, he's good, but he's not the flashy characters like Hulk Hogan or the Ultimate Warrior or the Undertaker." You know,
Yeah,
so
but
he wasn't that flashy character, which is why I didn't really notice him. He's underrated, definitely by me. Today, I would love him, but
I think
when I was a kid, I didn't.
I think actually today he would be a pretty strong pioneer, and I say pioneer because I brought this up, and maybe we'll save this later for the podcast. But when you have that flashy character like Hulk Hogan or Ultimate Warrior or that kind of stuff, it's there it's there to capture the people's because people we are visual creatures, right? And so we're going to go for something flashy,
Right.
but we're going to dismiss, or sometimes most people will dismiss, the technique or the art form of wrestling. And yes, wrestling is an art form. If you really want to put on a good convincing fight, you want to convince people like, whoa, is that real? Look, I think we know that it's very choreographed, but these guys put their bodies and lives in each other's hands for our entertainment. And you want to be with somebody who knows the techniques, who could take care of you, but that they'll take care of you as well. And it's not just about who's the front card person, which of course it can, it's always like that. Everyone wants to be the top dog. There's no debate about that. But it's also about preserving the integrity of the business so that more people want to see the show, because that's show running 101. You want the people, the audience, to keep coming back over and over again. And what I've noticed is that, especially with our generation and older people, like we look back at wrestling now and we're looking like, wow, this technique was there. Or this is something that flew under our radar. Or this is something that we completely dismissed. Or I didn't know about this person or that person. And while those guys who had the championship belt on, we didn't see these other guys here who really believed in it. And I think that's severely lacking. And I'll leave my comment question for later.
Yeah, and I want to add that it's interesting because so I'm a Shawn Michaels. I'm the Shawn Michaels guy. So, but the thing is that I'm in the 90s, like late 80s, early 90s. I was like 9-10 years old. For some reason, I was one of the few kids, or maybe one of the few, that gravitated to heels for whatever, and Shawn Michaels be one. But I do remember.
I would be second to that, yeah.
Right, and I do remember Mr. Perfect with the Jeanettes, the Mr. Perfect, and then the gum. You have to always do the gum thing, like, and I used to irritate kids off, like, oh, come here, Mr. Perfect. Oh, and then I miss 9 out of 10, I miss a gum. But that one time, I'm perfect. He's
He
one of those
actually
who,
did. He
yes,
actually did. You'd be surprised.
I know.
And
I've
it
heard.
was he was against Bret Hart, Angel.
Mhm.
It was November of '89, and Kurt was in the middle of his push until Hogan exited. So, but in
Hogan.
November of
Doesn't work for me,
'89,
brother.
that's right. That's what he told Vince, and Vince
Mhm.
came to Kurt and said, "Sorry, it's not going to work." Um, so before that, there was a couple of matches between Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, of course. And at the beginning of the match, I just remember, him going like this and missing, and then he just kind of kicks his leg. And I always wonder if like Brett said, "Hey, you missed." Something I would always love if I ever interviewed Bret Hart. It's something I would definitely
Yeah.
want to ask him. Did you say something to him? Hey, you missed. You missed. But and I apologize. I accidentally forgot that my newest episode 26 is actually about the Red Rooster and Mr. Perfect, and then we will do the Bret Hart Mr. Perfect 91 SummerSlam match. And I do have both men's commentary about the other, but I just kind of wanted to, um, you know, uh, Brett talks about how there's always like something that they always laugh about. And I think that there was mutual respect there because they had similar backgrounds. They were both second generation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, uh, I love the way that Kurt talks about Brett and Brett talks about Kurt. So I actually added that in, but I do apologize. It is episode 27, not 26. But the SummerSlam '89, which is Kurt and the Red Rooster. Again, I know we were talking about that Angel, how Terry Taylor never really recovered from that gimmick. And it
That
was sort
was
of we think it was a rib, even though I don't think Terry Taylor maybe thought it was a rib. I know Bobby Heenan said it wasn't a rib. It was more like they just didn't know what to do with him. And I
Terry.
haven't heard of anything with him getting that Mr. Perfect gimmick. So
Now, hold on. I have a question because this is
Oh.
something that's always kind of weighed with me because it seems like there's only been a handful of wrestlers who've ever been able to break out of the writer's block. Like not them, but like because the writers usually decide on what the character is going to go through, and like when they're stuck in a gimmick and it's really bad for them, only a handful of guys either one had to eat the shit and just to go through it, or either that were able to at least worm their way out. How
No.
difficult it is to really get out of something like that. That's what I always wanted to know because there's been a lot of wrestlers that even had to, deal with it. And for many, it caused long-term effects, both mentally,
What?
like, case in point, Renegade, who was like the Ultimate Warrior
Yeah.
version in WCW, who unfortunately self-deleted.
Right.
Yeah, he did too.
Yeah, and his story is very tragic because he got the television title, but then there was a
Yeah,
lot of
he
people saying like you
was.
don't deserve it and all this other
Right.
stuff, and yeah. So I don't know.
Then
Anyways,
WCW hired the Ultimate Warrior himself, and they got rid of him
Right.
instantly.
yeah.
But to
So
answer your
Angel, why don't you
question,
go ahead?
okay, to answer your question, I mean, a lot of wrestlers cannot get past shitty gimmicks. There's very
Mhm.
few. Like
Remember the
one,
Shockmaster?
oh yeah, I mean Tugboat. Tugboat, that was hilarious. But
No.
yeah.
No. Here. If we're doing Shockmaster first, quiet. Shockmaster, because he was laughing first before he said I'm
Ole
Shockmaster.
Anderson was his voice, and he was laughing as it maybe fell his ass. But yeah, but believe it, if you think about it, a shitty gimmick was the Undertaker. I mean, think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Half dead. No, he's half dead. He's doing, he dresses like a Western mortician from the Western movies,
Mhm.
and he can't talk, and he doesn't move. He moves slowly in the ring. That's a shitty gimmick. Mark Calloway somehow turned that to a 30-year career. Think about how good he had to be in order to turn that into a 30-year career. That shitty gimmick. But it was a
lot-
shitty gimmick.
Yeah, a lot of people think that because Dusty had the polka dots, that was a rib on Dusty. And Dusty never treated it like that. So I don't think it was a rib. Dusty took it very seriously, and he made something out of nothing. It's the
Dusty's
same thing with the
fantastic.
Gold Dust. You know, Gold
Yeah.
Dust technically was based off of Vince McMahon's first gay encounter.
Mhm.
So, and
Whoa.
You know that story?
Mr.
You know that
Perfect.
story?
Mr. Perfect had something to do with that because they just did Scott Hall's
Mm.
biography. So they were talking about that. And the only one who didn't really like it was Scott Hall because Goldust was like sending him flowers
Yeah.
and a teddy bear.
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
that as a
yeah.
kid.
Scott
I
Hall.
remember that like yeah. He was
Have you
doing
not
that
noticed
crazy
that
stuff.
Vince is into blondes, whether it's man or woman? I mean,
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan. I mean, you know, or whatever
Yeah.
the case might be. No, but it's interesting with the going back to the with the I don't know if because wrestling it's one of a kind. You know,
Right.
it ain't like you could go to old Japan, whatever, go outseas, but to what extent, if you don't like your gimmick, it's like you basically got to eat it. You know, what you're
Yeah.
gonna tell
Leave the
Vince McMahon,
territory.
what you're gonna tell these people, oh Vince, shove it, or whatnot. You burn bridges that way.
Yeah.
So I remember with Terry Taylor, because I remember watching Terry Taylor was in days of NWA, WCW. I mean, the guy looked like he had the it factor.
And
At least,
then-
so
And then Vince was like, "You're the Red Rooster, pal."
right. I remember that.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And then they changed it. Then they changed it to the Terry Taylor, the Red Rooster. I think they added his real
Right.
name afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, they added his
in
real name.
'93, he had a match with Kurt, and he was just known as Terry Taylor. That was on one of the first couple of episodes of Raw, actually.
Yeah.
So in '93, when
an
Raw
early Raw.
started, it was
Mhm.
like the second. It was the second episode of Raw that
Mhm.
actually he went back to Terry Taylor and had a match with Mr. Perfect when Mr.
Well-
Perfect was in the middle of his babyface run in '93.
Yeah.
Go
Here's
ahead.
a bit of trivia. Who was the first main event of Raw in Raw history?
That's a very good question.
Was it Perfect and Ric Flair?
No.
No.
That was
Nope.
the third episode. The first
The
episode.
first one.
Oh
The-
God.
Don't tell
I
me.
wanna say-
Well, it couldn't be 1, 2, 3 K, right?
Yeah.
No, Shawn Michaels and Jim Duggan.
No. Undertaker
Diesel.
and Damien Demento.
Yes,
Whoa.
that's right.
Mhm.
Wow.
I remember that Raw, the
Man.
first ever Raw.
Yeah,
so-
because the Jim Duggan thing came later. But I don't watch the first one because it doesn't have Kurt in it. The second one and the third one, yeah, they have. It's Kurt and Terry Taylor, and then the main event was Flair and Tito Santana, and Kurt comes out and beats up on Flair, and that's when Flair challenges him to
Loser
a
Leaves Town.
loser leave town match for the
Or
next
WWF,
weekend on Raw.
whatever. Yeah.
Right, the next week on Raw, they had
Yeah.
that loser leave town match, and it was after the Royal Rumble, so Kurt had been thrown out by Jerry Lawler of all people, but at least he threw freaking
Jerry
Ric Flair
Lawler?
out.
Well,
Jerry
he's the
Lawler,
king.
yeah,
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 He's like
the
a
king came
30-time
back.
world champion.
right. The King came back. He was commentating and wrestling at this time,
Mhm.
and he actually entered the
Wow,
Royal
Lawler.
Rumble because Jack Tunney told him he could, and that's
Mhm.
when Kurt said, "Well, I'm going to throw Ric Flair out," and he did, and then with Kurt hanging on with everything he could, Lawler finally got him to toss him over so that he actually didn't win the Royal Rumble. Who did win the Royal Rumble? If Kurt didn't, who did?
Jerry the
Well,
King.
what year?
Right?
This
What
will be
year are we talking
93. This will be 93.
Who won it? Yokozuna.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
because then he'd face off Hogan for the championship, right?
He
Later
faced
on.
Brett
he
for
would
the
face off
championship.
Brett.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
he would
Brett,
face
yeah.
Brett
And then
at
beat Brett.
WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then Hogan came in later and beat him for the
Right.
world
It
title.
was
Yeah.
like an 18-second thing.
And the reason
so-
why I
Yeah.
remember that is because Macho Man hit an elbow drop from the top rope and then tried to pin Yokozuna.
Yep.
He forgot the rules of the Rumble or whatever happened there. And he got tossed out like that. But Yokozuna
Oh
got
yeah,
out.
Macho Man was just being a little bit too macho man. Macho Man, thank you. By the way, thank you, Macho Man, for taking that bullet for us, man.
Come on, kid.
No,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
Macho Man saved the day. He saved the day.
Hey,
Stop the rapture in 2011.
No.
Oh yeah.
And Macho Man,
Macho
he's one of my guys. He's one of my guys.
I love Macho Man. He was a
good.
flashy character too.
Now, you know the reason why Curt turned babyface in 92. Yes? Does everyone remember why he did?
Was that when Hogan was about to leave WCW?
That was
or
Flair.
for WCW?
No.
Wait, because Hogan went to WCW in 95, right?
94.
93,
94.
yeah.
93,
93,
94,
94, yeah.
God damn. I'm getting old. Losing
So
everything.
the trivia question is, why did Mr. Perfect turn babyface in 92?
Was it that was the time? No, that wasn't. It had to be 90. Wait.
It was 92. It was right before Survivor Series 92. Yeah, 92.
Wasn't that when he slapped Heenan and agreed to be in Macho Man's corner for their match or something?
Yes, but there's a reason why he did behind the scenes.
See, I remember why it happened on television, but I don't remember. I don't.
It wasn't that time where Ultimate Warrior.
British Bulldog, yes.
Right,
they got popped for human growth hormones, and Randy Savage didn't have a partner because Vince fired both the Bulldog and the Ultimate Warrior for getting caught with human growth hormones. So that's why Mr. Perfect turned babyface.
I'm sure it was.
What was it? Was this also? Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, was this also when Vince was going through that trial with
steroid trial?
Yes, steroid trial.
No, that was 94.
Oh, 94, okay.
Yeah, 94 was a steroid trial. And Mr. Perfect, right before, if you watch there's an episode we do a watch along with the actual turn of Mr. Perfect. It's okay.
Motorcycle, like.
We have motorcycles go through here all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is if you ever do get a chance to go through my other episodes, episode I believe number 8, somewhere around there, we do a watch along with Mr. Perfect's heel turn, and it's so easy to almost put yourself into it and be like, you could do the commentary as well, but it was such a great skit. And see, this is the thing. This is before writers, okay? This is when people could literally have bullet points and create a promo off the top of their head. That's what I was trying to get across last night, that you don't need something written down like some freaking sheep that has to remember lines. You had to, back in the day, you had to come up with a promo off the top of your head with all the little bullet points that they talk about. So the person who thinks modern wrestling is good because they have lines that they have to learn, and then what happens when you forget the line? You're lost. You're lost, and the promo sucks.
Yeah, 10 years ago, around there, Randy Orton had to go to Sheamus and walk up to him like, "What was my line? I forgot the shit." It's like he told him, and he's like, "Oh, okay," he cut his promo, but it's stupid. It's fucking stupid. And then last night when we were, we were responding to that idiot's article. I mean, I was like, wait, it was arrogant, condescending, and it's like to older fans. It's like, oh, you're all old farts. I'm like, yeah, fuck off, man. I mean, go back and watch wrestling from 30 years ago when it was good when I was a kid, and tell me. But he would think that wrestling shit because they don't do million high spots.
Well, and they don't have lines to learn, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's a shitty promo." No, it isn't. When you can come up with a great promo off the top of your head, that's not called shit. That's called wrestling, honey.
Well, also they had to practice it too all the time because, again, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have teams of people and handlers. Like if you're okay. So let's say we were all wrestlers. We were there. Our gimmick, our whole thing is our character, who we are. We have to promo that. We don't have a manager or something like that. You don't have the money or the resources to really. I mean, yes, you're getting paid, to be clear here, and some guys are getting paid more than others, but the vast majority, if you couldn't memorize your stuff, if you couldn't do something that could win the crowd, then you're going to fall into obscurity, and no one's going to give a damn about you. Which, okay, I think now's a good time to bring up my question. With current wrestlers now, in comparison to Curt Hennig and all of the legends of the past, including WCW, ECW, WWF, all of that, the current crop of wrestlers, Are they in it just to get that Hollywood deal, that TV show on Netflix or something like that? Or are they in it to preserve the business? Because it seems to me a vast majority of them don't give a damn about the business. I don't see there's a lot of
No.
people there trying to carry on the legacy of what
And
wrestling
Omega is a
used to
big
be.
part of that. Yeah. So Kenny Omega is a what we would call
Twinkle
a video
Toes.
Twinkle Toes McFinger Bang is what Jim Cornette calls him.
Olivier, whatever
Um,
you want to know.
he actually is hurt, so he's on Twitch with his little video games. We call him a video game wrestler.
Yeah.
These are the guys
Aw.
that think that they need to do what they see in video games and also in indie circuits. They're like
Omega,
the. Go ahead.
Omega is around our age, so he played all those old games from the 90s, like No Mercy and the SmackDown versus Raws, all those games that we
Right.
played. I played them too. He played them, and I guarantee you that's where him and the Bucks and
I like the
Hangnail, all
WWF
those guys.
Attitude game
Yeah, those were
because I could do the
that was
Stone
good
Cold
too.
Stunner.
Yeah, that was good too. But yeah, they all I saw what they I saw what they that's all they know how to do.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Like they didn't learn how to wrestle. None of these fuckers. They just like
Yeah, none of these guys
Go ahead, yeah.
want to preserve the business. Okay, that's
No.
more like Randy Orton or John Cena, even
Roman
though
Reigns,
he's
I put that.
Roman Reigns, The Rock, all these old time or what we would call second and third generation guys.
Yeah, the second.
They're the ones that want to preserve the business. These other guys are just like, oh, I can do whatever I want and watch me go through a pane of glass because I'm Darby Allin and I got to hang around with Sting. First of all, Sting sucks. Okay, he sucked then. He sucked now.
Sting didn't give a shit. It's
Yeah,
like, you want to do that? Okay, fine, whatever.
Over. He never put anybody over. And neither did Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is a piece of shit. He was a piece of shit in WCW.
But at least he beat up Goldberg, so he's in my book a little bit. Yeah.
Well, wait, hold on, wait.
In a real fight.
Does anyone remember Sting's gimmick as not the Crow, but as the Joker?
Oh yeah, that was TNA.
Yeah, with that
TNA.
Yeah,
and then the blonde hair picks up.
It's a Joker gimmick. He ripped off the movies. The Crow, that Crow gimmick he had was a rip off from the Crow, and then later Joker Sting. I'm like, dude, you're just ripping off movies.
Yeah,
I never was impressed with Sting.
He would literally come out of the rafters and be like this Crow period, and I was just like, if anyone deserved to stay mute, it was Sting. But
Sting didn't give a shit, and then
Sting didn't give a shit, and that's why WCW suffered.
And then AEW was 30-0. He never put anybody over in AEW.
Right.
He never put anybody over.
Right.
Not even if I were him, I'm like, hey, can I put somebody over before I leave? I was like, oh no, no. Like, no, he didn't put anybody over.
He wasn't like Terry Funk. Let's put it that way.
Terry Funk is the best.
Would have put anybody over at any time. But this is not Terry Funk. This is like the guys who like the Ultimate Warrior were just in it for the money. I would say Brock Lesnar is like that too. And I don't know if Brock Lesnar did cocaine, but
I don't think he did. I'm talking about Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, well, hold on. Allegedly.
No, but this is how I think he did it.
There. He did something.
Vince would give him lines of coke and then go cut your promo, pal. It's like, oh, the moons and the that
and the gods. I've been talking to the gods.
I know there comes a time when the Warriors.
There's a lot of cocaine involved in that promo. Those promos.
You're like the moon landed in the daytime.
I would not doubt it for a second.
No, but the modern thing with the modern wrestlers, man, the modern wrestlers. I mean, I guess that's why AEW comes into the picture because they caters to them. It caters to
the modern audience.
Right? How can I still do the Twitch? How can I still do this? And at the end of the day, they're not into the wrestling thing. And I remember it was Stone Cold. Right. I think in Stone Cold's podcast, I believe it was like 10 years ago or something like that. He started like complaining the same thing that you got these kids. You do a DDT. Remember, DDT was a big thing. You drop a DDT.
When Jake dropped his DDT, it was over. It was devastating.
Yeah. Now you're talking
that
about
was devastating,
DDTs,
and that's why a lot of people got pinned because of those finishers.
Yeah.
And now they just kick out of everything.
Right.
Doesn't matter if it's a finisher or not. They do like 15 finishers and they kick out of all of them.
We talked about it last night. The power driver.
Right.
That was another finish. And they would ban it in a lot of territories.
They would ban it in a lot of territories because it was literally it was like it could paralyze you, but if you did it right,
Yeah.
you weren't even touching
Or
the ground.
or they were paralyzed to get heat, like Jim Cornette did. He banned it in Smoky Mountain,
Just
but
like
then the
Andy
heels,
Kaufman
yeah, the
and Jerry
heels would get
Lawler,
heat
that
off
whole
it.
thing. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
heels would get heat off. They'll power driver behind the referee back and beat him, and then the fans
The
like
only thing
would
is,
give him heat.
right,
Yeah.
Jerry Lawler didn't get heat for putting a pile driver on Kaufman because he was the babyface. Everyone was cheering him. But Andy Kaufman believed so much in kayfabe that he literally had that neck brace on for his show for months. And they he would not take it off because he believes solely in kayfabe. That's another thing. I've heard many wrestlers talk about, oh, the kids today, all they do is they sit on their freaking laptops and they don't talk to anybody. There's no veteran stories of the road and, you know, being on the road and having to pay your dues. That was another thing I forgot about last night. You know, a lot of these guys
there's a lot
have
of funny stories on the road.
you know, and they'll hit
from
and
the
that's
older
another-
guys,
the
yeah.
rape stories from the the older guys and being on the road and what that's like and family problems at home, you know. That's what these guys did. That's what they had to do in their pastime because they didn't have a cell phone. They didn't have a laptop. They didn't have all this Twitch and video games and bullshit like that. They actually had to sit and talk to each other. Now, the other thing that they did is they would actually stay in their own locker rooms. So the baby faces had their own locker rooms and the heels had their locker rooms. It's called kayfabe, boys. Kayfabe. Keeping kayfabe was very vital to the wrestling business in the 80s and 90s. Why? Because the fans believed it was real. And that's how you got heat. Or that's how you got cheered.
Yeah. Win the crowd and you'll win your freedom. That's just like that line from Gladiator. Win the crowd. If you could win the crowd, if the crowd can convince that you're a half-dead monster from hell and that your brother is a far more evil version called Kane.
Called Kane.
Yeah. You know, I mean, if you could convince the audience like that, then go ahead. Like all the more power to you, because that's what you have to do.
That's gotta be Kane. That's gotta be Kane.
That's why I always associate wrestling and politics, like they both hand in hand.
The same thing.
It's how you how you build, whatever the case might be. You know, give them a color, red, blue, whatever. But you know, the mainstream also has to do a lot, but it has to do with the character and how the crowd reacts to you. Now, if you're someone, you know, that has the mic that could be able to pull a crowd, forget about it. You know, you'll be here forever in wrestling. But if you're not good in the mic and not good, that's why a lot of wrestlers start doing these stunts because they're not good in the mic.
Right. They can't put asses in seats like Dusty could. Dusty could talk him into the building. You know, all the older guys, Ole could talk him into the building. They just did a thing on, Hogan could talk him into the building.
If you may not like Hogan, but he can talk you into the building.
He can talk you into the building. Thunderbolt Patterson was another one who could talk you, even though his wrestling was kind of the shits. There's a lot of guys that were good on the mic, and Bret Hart was one of them. Shawn was another. And then, of course, Curt also could talk you in. Yep, Junkyard Dog could talk you in.
His wrestling wasn't the best, but again, in Louisiana, with the black people, you can talk him to the building all day long.
Absolutely. And if you
and
were
again,
good,
that wasn't racist.
Like
I'm just saying, you know, black people.
Right. He was called One Take Jake because he could literally do it on the first take, just like Curt could do it. You know, these guys were literally pulling ideas off their heads. And if you watch their old promos, I know Curt would kind of like look around and be like, okay, you know, like you could almost see it in his head. The wheels were turning. He was thinking, I got to say this. I got to say that. I got to tell him what we're going to do, what we're going to say. So
what arena we're going to be in.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like he had, these guys had, as Jim Cornette will say, they had bullet points and they wanted you to touch on all these bullet points. But now, and this is something else I forgot to mention last night, is that, you know, it seemed like the promos went from, you know, a minute to 2 minutes and now they're freaking 10 minutes long. All we do is talk. That's not wrestling. That's just talking.
Well, that's WWE.
I don't want to talk to you. I want to see you fight this guy. That's why it's called wrestling.
Exactly.
That's WWE now.
Could I bring up something here too? It's a little bit different, but you know, for the first time, last February. Okay, in February, obviously. In last month,
Mhm.
first time ever, I went to a monster truck rally. I always wanted to go as a kid, right? Always wanted to go
Okay.
there, right?
Oh, okay.
No. My mom would always say, "Kid, it's too loud. You can't." Finally, at the age of almost 40, I go ahead see a monster truck. I'm 39 right now, so go ahead see a monster truck rally. Had a lot of fun. I was not there to see the truck drivers talk to each other. I was not there to see
Right.
I was
Yeah.
there to
Right.
see the monster trucks do stunts. When you
We're
go
there
to
to
a
see
wrestling event,
Gravedigger do a last run.
yeah. Oh, actually, I saw Gravedigger
I
was there.
I went to monster truck rallies. There's there's a monster truck place right off of 222 here in Lancaster County. It's called the Buck, and I've been going there since I was a very little girl. I want to get my son back there because he loves monster trucks. But yes,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I actually got to meet one of the monster truck guys, the drivers,
Mhm.
when I
Yeah.
was about 8, 9 years old. So,
Yeah.
Kit, I'm glad you had a lot of fun because it is,
Oh,
yes, it's
I
very
did.
loud, but
It was
but I
so
had earplugs,
I didn't
so
have earplugs.
Yeah, I always
yeah,
wanted to go
my
to one of
mom
those.
took me with the earplugs.
No,
The
I didn't
little
have
Said,
that.
basic
trust
But
me,
grave
they're gonna be your
digger.
best friend.
right. But see, the thing is, I wasn't there to see the truck drivers talk to each other.
Talk, right. You were
I
there to
mean,
see them do stunts and get
yep,
muddy and
yeah.
do what they do.
I
Right.
think
And that's like wrestling.
Yeah.
And see, the thing is, when I tuned in for SmackDown, I felt that the talking was like that special treat in between. Like that was it was because it was done so selectively, and you'd either have some great moments that would make you laugh out loud, be like, "Oh my god, he said that to him," but then the vast majority would be fighting. Like you want to see the fights, and I'm not there to see a soap opera. I'm there to
That's
think
what it
see
about
is
the
now.
fight.
Right, and think about this too with Monster Truck. It's funny because I always wanted to go 1, 2, but I do remember watching what is it, Gravedigger, whatever.
Mhm.
Even
Mm.
I think Monster Truck. My understanding, some of the races was rigged, but you built the guy like Gravedigger, the other guy Bigfoot, whatever the case might be.
Bigfoot. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
Bigfoot.
Keep
you
your
have a
shovel
five.
sharp.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Then Hulk Hogan had a Monster Truck too. Jesus.
Yep.
No,
Yeah.
we are
So did
not
Stone
mentioning.
Cold.
We are not mentioning the great monster truck wrestling match of WCW. Okay, we're not
Oh,
talking about this.
That's
yeah.
terrible.
This is taking place on top
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
arena. No,
I
it's
remember.
No,
this
it's
weighs
not.
15,000
Bullshit.
pounds.
Bull
Wow.
fucking shit.
But even then, you build like a little storyline or somewhere. I think I mentioned this, and because I grew up in Puerto Rico, the Puerto Rican wrestling, and that's why I gravitated to ECW because of the hardcore stuff behind it. I mean, Puerto Rico, Carlos Colon, Arturo the Butcher, but they didn't talk much. Arturo the Butcher, all you had to see his eyes and his thing.
Bruiser Brody.
And all he right, Bruce
Bruiser
Brody, right?
Brody.
Mhm.
The oh my God, what do you call what do they call those?
Bushwhacker.
Bushwhackers.
The Bushwhacker was there at that one time,
The
so they
sheep
didn't
herders
talk
at the
much.
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
but the
Mhm.
fact is that even though it was hardcore, they told a story,
Yeah.
and
Right.
you left there like, oh my goodness, it ended in a disqualified, but now I want to see another one. But the stories was there. You don't see
That
that
was
that
the whole
much
point.
anymore.
No, because a lot of the reason why, because the money is prepaid to the wrestling companies through the television deals. They
Right.
get prepaid money. WWE, AEW, they all get prepaid money through the television deals. So they don't need to
Right.
draw money. They don't need to draw tickets. WWE does. I mean, right now they're hot, so they're drawing a shit ton of money,
Mhm.
but yeah, they don't really need to anymore. So that's why wrestling sucks. A lot of the reason why wrestling sucks because they get prepaid their money.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
the
It's guaranteed money is what they call it.
Yep.
the fight for competition is gone because securing a TV deal back in the day was rough. Hell, it's what ended ECW, unfortunately, when they had that
Yeah.
when Spike TV. To hell with Spike TV, anyways. Yeah.
Paramount Network.
Yeah, and then there was also what happened to WCW with what's it, AOL, the AOL and Turner
AOL,
were-
Time Warner
and
promo.
Turner.
Time Warner, yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah.
Merger.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're not going to care, like if now everything's secure because you have the TV deal, how many people are really going to be motivated to really put their bodies on the line? And look, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but the whole thing about wrestling is putting on a freaking good show, and having people return. And if it's all like milquetoast and everything's safe and everyone's talking, why am I tuning in? Why am I watching?
WWE
And
got
see,
$5
that's-
billion from Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's not
right.
They got $5 billion from Netflix to do
Right.
Raw. Only
And I
Raw,
think
not
that's
even.
what we were kind of like hashing out last night is that you know, the guy was saying in the article that you have to be high flying and you have to have really good spots. No, no,
Horse
no, no, no,
fucking
no, no.
shit. Go ahead.
There,
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
there's
Sorry.
no reason why a guy needs to go through a table every single fucking night. I mean,
It's
you played
ridiculous.
this to death,
Like,
and
hey,
you
get some
literally,
furniture. Get some
yeah,
fucking
you have a
furniture. I'm
guy
going
who
through a
literally
table.
who does know how to do what we call taking bumps. A guy doesn't know how to take bumps if he has to go through a plate glass window and has his butt cut up. That's what we call the hardcore, thumbtacks. But they did it all the time in ECW, and eventually people got tired of it. But
Wow,
Yeah.
ECW. I would say that all the time.
I was
Paul
about to
Heyman.
mention that. I was about
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Paul
mention that
Heyman.
too. That was the
Paul
one of the
Heyman.
knocks with ECW. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
take much to hit somebody with a chair or hit him with a
right,
Nintendo and
right.
all that. And
I
I'm
said
And
like,
that's
that.
why a lot of
okay.
the older wrestlers came out and had concussions and had brain trauma because they literally were hitting them with chairs now every single day,
I said,
whereas they were just wrestling back in the territories. There was no need to have a chair.
yeah, I said that doesn't take much talent to shove a light tube up your ass and break it. Like, have you seen that video from I tagged D and Steph
And
last
me,
a few
yep.
Yeah, I
days
saw
ago.
it.
Yeah,
There was a guy,
Ah,
yeah, there
doesn't
was a
take much
guy pulled
talent to
his
do that,
pants down and literally stuck a light up his butt
and then broke it, and then they
and then
broke it,
broke it. And there
and
was
that's
like this
offense.
stuff. And if that had burnt him, you
Mm.
don't think he wouldn't have gone and sued?
Yeah,
Because
he
that was an
would.
indie circuit too.
Yeah,
nah.
That could have hurt him majorly and burnt his skin
that
off.
makes the business look like shit. It's like,
It does.
I mean,
It makes it look like you can't think of, you got to do all this outrageous stuff just to make wrestling look good. And that's not wrestling. That's
no, those
circus
are.
bullshit.
That's just a goddamn jabroni that works at Jiffy Lube and wrestles once a week.
And
Right.
these are the
Or
things that
wrestles once a week.
the
Bullshit.
backyard wrestling. Time within the mid 90s. The what was the name of those clowns? The Juggalos. What is it? ICP.
ITW, that bullshit. Yeah.
ICP.
Yeah,
But,
ICW.
ICP, yeah, whatever it was.
yeah. So
ICP.
they even had whatever it is. But they had these things where everything again, they don't last long because they don't have a storyline. Like they don't
Right.
have nothing. And a good spot. What is a good spot? But that people don't remember. I mean, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome," and then, like I think Angel mentioned this. Like you ask them after the match, or you remember that spot? No, I
No,
just they don't.
no. They just
Right.
think it's a cool spot.
The other thing is, it's hard to have a good roster and a good storyline and a good promotion when all of your freaking people are hurt because they're doing spots all the time where they're
Mhm.
literally injuring themselves. Now they can't climb Mount Everest like he was ever
That
going to.
goddamn moron, Darby Allen, broke his foot right
Darby
before he
Allen
about to
broke his
climb
foot, and it's kind
Mount
of like,
Everest.
He
He would
the
have died
universe saying,
anyways.
no,
He
you
wasn't going to
can't do
climb
this.
Mount Everest, and no
No,
one
he
even
wa-
climbs Mount
Yeah,
Everest
yes.
with any integrity.
We
By the
know.
No,
way,
that
but
motherfucker would have.
yeah, he's dumb enough to, but
Yeah,
he's like this one of those skateboard guys that thinks he's like the shit, and
he broke
his
his
wrestling
foot.
is the shits.
In fact,
speaking of
Part-
which, to the viewing audience watching, don't ever climb Mount Everest. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't do it. It's just a good portion of that mountain is covered now with a large amount of
out
human
of
waste
bodies.
And their
and
Yeah.
bodies.
and dead bodies
Right.
and the magic and mystique. By the way, when you get to the top, you're waiting in line just so you can take your little
It-
solo picture.
If Darby Allen ended up there, I'd be like, okay. You want to be a dead body up there? Okay. I don't care. Sorry.
Exactly. And then what would that mean for Tony Khan?
He'd be
Okay,
fucked.
you spent all
'Cause he-
this money on this
He lost
dude,
the top guy.
and he lost the top guy because the guy came and self-deleted himself because he thought he could climb a mountain that nobody can really climb, and very few people have and been able to live to tell the story.
Mhm.
So you have these wrestlers with delusions of grandeur. They're not even wrestlers, they're not even entertainers, they're just doing what they
They're
saw on
stuntmen.
indie circuits because they want to do that and they call it wrestling. There's
They're fucking
another
stuntmen.
points where I was talking about if you want to do all this stuff like with Effie and what happened with that, and John Moxley, who's married to a woman supposedly, but he's kissing men on the lips. Look, if you want to watch gay porn, go watch gay porn.
Yeah,
But don't call it wrestling. Do not call it wrestling
If
in
you don't know,
my face. Like,
yeah, if you don't,
if you're talking to me about this stuff, trust me, I am going to whoop your ass with facts, honey. And I don't care how you feel about those facts. The facts are none of the wrestlers I know of or grew up with would be kissing men on the lips while one of them is jacking off in the ring.
No.
All right? If you want to
That's
watch gay
literally
porn or
true,
you
by
want
the
to
way.
watch porn, go for it, honey. I don't care who you suck dick or if you eat pussy. I don't give a fuck. But you're not going to do that stuff in a wrestling ring and call it wrestling.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's literally true, by the way. There's a wrestler named Effie who jerks off during his matches for no reason. He just does
Whoa, what?
that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You didn't hear about this?
No.
I'm not making this up. Look him up.
What?
EFFY, Effie.
Right.
Look him up.
Hold on, because I've been out of the loop. I didn't know somebody was doing that. And that's
yeah,
on WWE?
That's what we're talking about. There
No,
was
no,
this
no.
spot.
No, it's
yeah,
some
they were
indie
talking
guy.
about it on Dutch
Some
Mantel,
indie
on Jim
moron.
Cornette. They were talking about it on all these wrestling podcasts because people now have literally turned porn, gay porn, and all that stuff, and are calling it wrestling. No, honey, that's not how it is.
That's not WWE, to be clear. Some indie moron, you know. Effie,
It was
you know?
it was an
Yeah, it was an
it
indie
wasn't
guy.
WWE or it wasn't AEW.
Not even
though I
AEW,
think,
to be fair.
yeah,
I
would
I
be
think
surprised if
they
only
are getting
hired him, though.
close.
He just,
I think they're getting close.
like, okay, so he just decided, hey, my gimmick is I'm just gonna jerk it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in the middle of the ring.
And,
Right
and
in
I
the
think
middle
he
of the
started that on his
With
own.
John
like,
Moxley, right? Because John
Right,
Moxley
right.
was
Yeah.
kissing him.
That's
Yeah.
the first time I saw this fucker because
Yeah.
Moxley's a
Yeah.
big star, so it was all over Twitter. You know, it's like, oh,
All over.
well,
It was
Moxley, he
everywhere.
was touching himself, and Moxley just kissed him in the lips.
I think
Right.
that he did that gold.
And
that
in real
gold
life,
dust
I think
stuff with
isn't he
the-
gay? Isn't he
Effie?
gay in real life?
I don't know, but I don't know much about Effie, but
God damn.
I think
he could
Effie's
be
gay in
I
real
don't
life,
know. Yeah,
which is
he
fine.
dresses
Again,
like
if
it.
that's what you like, go watch porn, but do not do it in a wrestling ring and call it wrestling because that's not wrestling.
I'll be
Wrestling
back. I
is
need a
two
refill.
men doing snug or doing, moves that they know how to freaking do because they went to wrestling school and they actually were in the territories and paid their dues. That's wrestling, honey. What this stuff is today, it's nothing compared to what if you watch any Curt Hennig match, I don't care if it's in the 80s or if it's in the freaking 2002 before he passed and self-deleted. You will not see him at any time. Will he be touching himself or
No.
will he be trying to kiss other men or other wrestlers? For heaven's sakes,
man.
boys, you need to stop this.
Yeah, definitely. I don't understand the logic. I would hate to think that they're doing it for clicks. That's another thing too. Like these wrestlers is
Probably.
really on that click. Like, oh yeah, we got 900,000 views on YouTube. My segment with that. What does that mean versus the people that watches it? 700,000 people that watches the show. I mean,
Right. And honestly, I know we're here celebrating his birthday and stuff. And again, he was the greatest wrestler to ever live. And you can't put a candle like all these wrestlers today. The only one that could hang with him is literally probably Randy Orton, The Rock. I don't remember Kurt ever facing The Rock. I know he faced Stone Cold in 2002. And his last match in WWE was with Tommy Dreamer, I believe. And then,
I
of
don't
course, he
remember.
had the plane ride from hell, and then he got taken out of his contract. Now, there is an interview with him, and he just says Vince didn't have anything for him. I think that's a lie, but I think Kurt was trying to gloss it over and not make it a big deal.
When Vince says he doesn't have anything for you, that means that he doesn't want you. He just got to get rid of you. That's an excuse usually. That's a joke among wrestlers. It's like, oh, Vince didn't have anything for me, which means that he didn't want me at that point. So fuck him. You're fired.
I think Kurt with Kurt, because Kurt, even if he could fight like any mid tier, no matter what level you in, he'll still make it entertaining. I think the only wrestler that I could think that was like that he just did whatever and then he just made it entertainment was Eddie Guerrero. Even Eddie Guerrero he was like the only
he
one.
was part of the Luchas when the Luchas were actually Luchas.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
this jumping around the ring like, oh, I'm gonna have a mask on and that
I
kind of
watched
thing.
I watched Lucha on Univision like a few years ago, and I was watching it and was like, "This is the shits." Like, what happened to the Eddie Guerreros of the world and Rey Mysterios
Rey
and
Mysterio's, Dean
Psychosis and
Malenko's,
Dean Malenko,
Well, you
La
can't. Well, you can't.
Parka,
yeah,
Well, you
the
can't have
Parka,
those.
yeah,
Well, so you
Juventud
can't have
Guerrera.
those.
Juventud, yeah,
Well,
Juventud in Spanish, but
I'll tell you why you can't have like some of the great people who we once saw. It's because some of the characters that they played or the gimmicks that they had would now be deemed problematic.
That's true. I
the
do
Problematic.
think,
isms,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a lot of
racist,
the
I
isms.
think,
sexist, and
and that's a good question. So, could there be a Mr. Perfect who thought he was better than everybody today? Or what we would call like, and that's why I think he saw a lot of charisma and talent in Triple H. Because if you all remember, before Triple H was Triple H, the game, he was a blue blood snob called
Mhm.
Hunter Hearst Helmsley, right?
he would
Yeah,
do
So,
the
and I think
bow,
Kurt,
like
right, because I think Kurt would classify Mr. Perfect as a, if he were here today, I think he would classify Mr. Perfect as a snob because in
yeah,
his vignettes, he always says, well, pull to you common folk. No, don't you wish you could be Mr. Perfect? That kind of thing.
Mm.
So I think in a sense, um, how Kurt played Mr. Perfect, do you think Mr. Perfect, the gimmick, could survive today being a
yes,
snob? You
yes.
do?
I think it
Okay.
would,
Yes, because I'd be a fucking heel. It was like, oh
Mhm.
well, well, I mean, he thinks he's perfect. Well, fuck him, I
Right.
mean, boo, that's simple. I think he would survive any era. That gimmick.
Okay.
I would say
I would
Uh,
so.
I
the
would
rest of you
say
boys?
okay. Why don't you go first, D?
No, I would say so. Sometimes I wonder in wrestling whether sometimes they do recycle gimmicks in a different package with a different name.
Yep.
Hmm.
I think Mr. Perfect, wow, like you would have to really have the perfect wrestler and the perfect, because again, Mr. Perfect, he's so wow. That's why I say Eddie Guerrero was the same way. That you could throw Eddie Guerrero across the thing and he'll just do something different. So
Right.
I won't be surprised if 10 years from now or within 10 years they bring some repackaged kind of Mr. Perfect type of gimmick in
No one can do
WWE.
that gimmick.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I don't think someone could pull it off.
I
Not
I
like
I
Kurt.
Yeah, I think
I
Kurt.
want to say that yes, it could in theory. However, looking at when new wrestling got started and all these storylines and everything else, and how people's emotions and corporations trying to appease everybody, which you can't do, it's impossible. You can
Right.
get people to see your show, but you can't have them all agree on the same opinion and everyone being happy.
Right.
That's beyond stupid. That's not how you do it. Show running is you get the people in the audience, sit down in the seats. They go in, they go out, and they come out with their own opinion. They're not all going to universally agree. I would think, in theory, yes. And I want to say that this person would probably be deemed problematic. And if they had the attitude of Kurt, then, playing the game of politics, because it's all a game of politics in this business, he could probably still be okay and be deemed a refreshing pioneer, especially now, because what's happening now, not related to wrestling, but Disney corporations and a lot of these big Hollywood movies, that message that they kept on pandering to people and trying to placate to everyone and doing this whole inclusion stuff, right? It is now falling flat and people aren't tuning in. So he would be okay. I would say like maybe somebody like Kurt, but they'd have to have that attitude and be able to be smart in playing the game of politics in wrestling to be around and then still survive with all the cancel culture and Twitter and emotionally unstable people out there on social media. So in theory, yes, but who is that person? Because not everybody can be Curt Hennig, so there you go.
Right. And here's the thing, Angel, sorry, just let me do this
But
real quick.
that goes for all wrestlers too. You can't.
It's your channel, it's your show, so it's fine.
So here's what I think they should have done with Joe Hennig. Okay. Yes, Kurt's son Joe was in wrestling very briefly as he came in as Michael McGillicuddy.
McGillicuddy, ridiculous.
Yes. Which was crap, and it was
it was a crap gimmick.
Even though he can wrestle, he was taught by his father and his grandfather and Brad Riggins, who was a big. He had also trained Kurt somewhat. So I really think that if they wanted to further the Mr. Perfect character, I could almost see them doing it with Joe, because Joe knew his father's gimmick.
Kurt.
He was a part of his
Mhm.
father's life. He grew up in the business. He was third generation, but then they gave him this. They gave him a sort of a leeway with it, and he became Curtis Axel.
Curtis
But they
Axel.
still treated him like he was not his father. And I just think I did read an article about this, where you sort of had to make it in yourself with Vince. And I just think Joe maybe thought if he was nice to Vince, or if he kissed Vince's butt a little bit, he might have gotten farther into the business. Whereas Vince wanted you to prove
No,
yourself and stand out on
yeah,
your own.
yeah. I don't see. I don't know why that didn't work. He should have asked his father. He worked for Vince a long time. Well, to be fair,
Right.
his father would have been gone long before he got into business. But
That's what the article said. The article said
yeah,
that Joe was kind of playing a prank on him, and he put his foot out like he was gonna,
mhm,
trip Vince when he was walking by one time,
yeah.
and he actually stepped on Joe's foot. Vince stepped on Joe's foot, and he said he turned around after he walked sort of away and said, "Aren't you gonna say anything?" He's like, "Sorry, sir," and he's
Ah,
like, "No, I want you
he's
to stand
done.
up for yourself, Joe."
No, he's done. He's
Yeah,
dead to Vince.
I
Same
Oh,
thing
just
happened to Johnny Nitro, John Morrison,
yeah,
because
wow.
he Batista was fucking around with his girlfriend, and
yeah,
Vince found
yeah,
out about it. And Vince expected Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, do something about it. He didn't, and he was
right,
done with him at that point. It's like, oh, you didn't do
yeah.
anything, fucking cuck, fuck him. I'm not gonna push him.
And unfortunately, it just came out that Joe, Joe's a nice guy. He's like Curt. He's a very nice guy.
Mm.
And because of budget cuts, they ended up releasing him anyway. And Joe has, a regular life with 3 boys and his wife, and I'm glad. I'm glad that he
Yeah,
has
yeah,
that life, but I just don't think I think the only reason why they gave Joe the Intercontinental Championship belt was literally because Curt had it. Because
they,
now they can say, oh, well, the first father and son combination had that belt, which was Curt
yeah,
Hennig and Joe Hennig.
Yeah, but see,
yeah,
So,
and they gave him.
but when you hand out a title like that, then that causes more problems, resentment in the locker room. Like,
It,
oh, why the hell you're gonna get that? Oh, it's because you are the son and your dad
mhm.
had that belt. Anybody
right.
who always
It
gets a belt
discredits the
handed to them,
title too.
it's a huge disrespect. Plus, the Intercontinental Championship was back in the day like the number 2 belt, and I thought it's a very
Now,
beautiful belt.
now
It
it
was a
is.
beautiful belt. Yes.
It was.
It
It
was a
was.
beautiful belt. And the only exception to that was Curt and, of course, Rick Rude, who both had the Intercontinental belt, but never the heavyweight belt. So I
Because
think that's a
like,
big a big drawback, that they should have pushed Curt. And then, of course, the whole thing with Hogan happened. And because even
brother,
Bret Hart admits it in his book that they were going to push Curt, and someone X'd it with blonde hair. And then Curt would come over and say they kind of did that. They had the West Texas Rednecks for like 3 months, and then someone with blonde hair came to them and said, "That's not okay with me, brother. I can't follow that, brother."
No, you
So
can't follow
I
that,
can't.
brother.
I
Talk,
can't
I
follow
can't
that.
do
Hogan.
the
Hey, brother.
I can't do the accent,
What are
or
you
can't
doing,
do the
Hulk Hogan?
impression very well.
Mr. G Perfect, you're
The
doing a
thing,
terrible job doing my voice, sister.
Hogan, Hogan fucked Kurt's pushes at least 2 or 3 times throughout their careers.
Well, who hasn't Hogan fucked
Yes,
over?
Oh well,
Who
everybody,
hasn't?
that's a good
everybody,
question.
brother.
Eric
What you gonna
Bischoff.
do, brother?
Eric Bischoff. I think that's the only person I don't think he's fucked
Yeah,
is Eric Bischoff.
yeah. I mean, like, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, before, I think as young kids, we were all like, "Yeah, it's Hogan, woo!" But as you
Yeah,
older you get, it's
Not
like,
me.
oh,
Terry,
fuck off,
I
man.
No,
think
I was all for
Terry,
Curt. Even during
Hogan,
the whole Carrie thing. The
Terry Von
Carrie
Erich.
Von Erich and
Hmm.
Mr. Perfect, the
I still
Texas
can't believe.
Tornado. Go ahead.
I still can't believe Carrie had the 1 foot and worked with the 1 foot when he did.
Right. That was a big surprise when they told us that
Yeah,
he had a prosthetic foot.
yeah.
I looked at my man and said, "What the hell? How could you
Like
tell?"
how could he work with a prosthetic foot? Be one of the best workers I've ever
I
seen.
don't know. I don't
If you
know. I
believe it,
literally,
if you love the craft, if you love the business,
well, yeah, and he was
Well,
second
Carrie,
generation.
you know.
Yeah, he's
Larry was
second.
second.
Yeah, Fritz.
No,
You
you got-
know, I mean, Fritz
but
von
also-
Erich. Yeah.
But also, I mean, yeah, I don't want to say like that hasn't been done before, but you remember wrestling has its origins in the carnival circus, and of
Right.
course, a lot of
100%.
carnies. You know, I mean,
Right.
a lot of them. Some had disabilities where like they might have been missing a foot, or you wouldn't know that they had some kind of injury, and you know, you got to push on through it.
Right.
He's like, yeah.
So another
I put on
trivia
a prosthetic
question.
foot.
Trivia.
Go ahead.
Yeah, another
Sorry.
trivia question. So, and some of you may not know this, some of you may. Who did Curt Hennig face in '87? And it was a controversial ending in the AWA. Who did he get the belt from?
Was
Nick
Nick? Nick
Bockwinkel. That's right.
Bockwinkel, yeah.
Really, him?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nick
yeah, no,
Bockwinkel,
Nick,
yeah.
Nick was a champion, and Nick was
Yeah.
a thing. A lot of people
Yep.
forget
Wow.
Nick Bockwinkel.
Who was at ringside? Who was at ringside?
Bobby the Brain.
Yeah.
No.
No, you're
No.
talking about the ref. You're talking about the ref.
No,
No,
I'm talking about who was at ringside during the match between Nick Bockwinkel and Curt.
Jesse.
Who was at ringside?
No,
he
no,
was
not
sitting in a
Jesse.
chair. Someone you're gonna laugh when you hear the answer.
It wasn't
It
Vince.
was Muhammad
No.
Ali.
No.
I don't.
Now come
I
on,
don't
you know the
this.
match. You know who Curt got the belt from.
Yeah,
Who was sitting at
Bockwinkel.
ringside? Who was
Muhammad
was-
Ali.
no, he was
No, that's what I
the
said.
son-in-law. He was the son-in-law of Vern Gagne.
Son-in-law.
He was
Who's
the son-in-law of Vern
Vern
Gagne.
Vern Gagne.
Ready for the answer?
Jesse?
No.
Not
it
that
was-
Jesse Ventura.
Jesse was over in WWF at this time.
Yeah, by that point he's in WWF. I don't
Yeah.
know. I give up. Who?
You give up. Larry Sabisco. Larry
Oh,
Sabisco was at ringside.
Oh,
Larry
right.
Sabisco
Yeah,
was at
okay. I know who that
ringside.
is. Yeah.
That's
He
another
hands-
guy too, Larry.
And you have to really watch.
Wow.
He hands Curt a roll of dimes, and it's literally like a second. And you see
Right.
Curt do like this with his fist. He gets up, he swings, he hits Nick Bockwinkel. Nick is out for the count. And then he covers him 1, 2, 3. And because and then Curt kind of sticks the roll of dimes down his tights. And then he eventually, Larry Sabisco will come into the ring and he will hand it back to him. And then they pull a roll of change out of Larry Sabisco's. He had pants on, special pants.
That's
and they
right.
will literally
Pants for
pull
win.
out. They pull the change out of his pants, and it's controversial. The referee takes the belt from Curt. They do an investigation, and Curt ends up getting the belt anyway. So, yes, it was Larry Sabisco who
That makes no
was
sense.
part of the controversial end. And I do have a picture of that somewhere, but I have a picture of Curt during the investigation, and they're like, "Well, let's turn to the monitor
Over here
here."
muted.
And he's like, "What? I don't see
forget that
anything."
Nick and Larry, they were legends, and
Yep.
in these places.
And
so-
Nick Bockwinkel was sort of towards the end of his career. He was already
Yeah.
40 some years old.
I-
And Vern had promised Curt that he was going to be champion anyway. So in 87 and 88, Curt Hennig was the AWA heavyweight champion of the world, which he lost a couple times, but also got it back. Who did he when here's another good trivia. When he went to the WWF, Curt was signed to the WWF in 88. Who did he lose the belt to?
Rick Martel.
No.
Bret Hart.
He was AWA
No.
champion though.
No,
but
wait.
He was AWA champion, but there's someone else in another territory who had
Stan
stepped
Hansen.
No.
Shit.
Who had stepped up to the plate to take the belt once Curt had, because like literally he says in Curt's documentary that a week after he dropped the belt to this person, he went to the WWF. Who was it?
You know what territory we're talking about?
I'm talking
AWA.
I'm talking about the AWA belts would go to someone else who was not in the AWA. And Curt a week later would go to a week later go to the WWF and have dark matches.
I don't know.
Wait.
Everybody give
No.
Don't
No.
you look it up. You cannot look it up. You cannot.
I'm not looking it up.
Watch
not.
it. That's it.
I'm not. Look.
Disqualified.
Okay, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
okay. If
I heard the story.
Wait,
It reminds me.
Wait. I'm gonna give out two choices. Hold on.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
okay, so this was his last time in AWA, right?
This would be Curt's last week in AWA. Yes,
So AWA, he's done.
he's
All
done.
right.
Once he drops the belt.
I'm gonna make a gamble here. But
Go ahead.
I want to have two lifelines.
Okay, two lifelines.
My first choice is Jerry the King,
Yes.
and my
It was Lawler.
Jerry Lawler, yes. It was Jerry Lawler who was not part of the AWA. However, they asked Curt to do a job and give Jerry Lawler the belt, the AWA belt, which he would go on to defend at not Super Brawl. It would be called Super Superstars or something like that. All-Star, it was All-Star Wrestling, something like that.
That was the Kerry Von Erich match, right?
Yes.
But did
where he won the match from Kerry.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
I remember that match. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm done being senile here for a second here.
No, you actually won.
19,
you got it though.
No, obviously I was a dumb kid. So 1988, still a kid. 1990. So
this would have been 88. So this would have been spring of 88, right before Curt went into the WWF, and he would be doing dark matches until September of 88.
Wait.
It reminds me of that Taz Mike Awesome situation.
Wasn't he?
I was just gonna say that.
Wait, did Koenig also have sort of like a Goldberg moment where he was undefeated for a while?
Yes, when Curt came into the WWF, he came in as himself. Right, he came in as Curt Hennig, and then during the October 4th edition of Primetime Wrestling, you actually see his first vignette that comes out, and it's the pool or the billiards vignette, and then he faces Jumping Jim Brunzell as Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. So this is when they kind of got him in. He stopped doing dark matches. Here's a good trivia question for you. You probably don't know. When he came into the WWF, he did dark matches for a while, because I know I looked all through Primetime Wrestling, couldn't find him. On his September 18th edition of Primetime Wrestling, Curt Hennig faced this person as himself. He was Curt Hennig with superstar Billy Graham at commentary, Jesse Ventura at commentary, and also Gorilla Monsoon. Who was the man he faced as himself? This is before the Mr. Perfect gimmick.
In prime time?
Well, it was actually prime time was more like they would do a bunch of house shows. They would do like a review of the house shows. So this is more like a house show that he did, but it's still it premiered on Primetime Wrestling.
Was it the Shawn Michaels fight match?
No. They weren't. The Shawn Michaels was still on the Rockers at this time.
Wait. Okay, so it wasn't pay-per-view, it was public, right?
It was public. It was Primetime Wrestling.
Yeah, it's a house
Gorilla
show.
Monsoon,
probably a dark match or something.
It was almost a dark match, yeah. But he had been doing dark matches because, trust me, I looked for him on Primetime in the spring, and he wasn't there.
Who did he face? It's 88.
It's 88, 1988. It would be in September of 88. It would be him, and he came in as Curt Hennig. Against who?
Son of a gun.
This is before his gimmick. This is before Vince took him into a room and said, "Well, what are you good at?" And he said, "I'm good at everything."
Could I first name Jim? I'm gonna say Jim something.
No, it's not Jumping Jim Brunzell. He faced him when he became Mr. Perfect. It was the billiards vignette, and then it was his match with Jumping Jim Brunzell. That would be his first match as Mr. Perfect. This is his first match when he comes into and finally gets on TV.
Ron something?
Bass? Ron Bass? No.
No. Ron Rashavod?
I just want to throw it out there. I don't think I was in this country when that came out.
No, that's right. No, he wasn't. Yeah.
Everybody give up?
I was not born here.
I don't have a clue.
Andre the Giant?
No. SD Jones. SD
Special Delivery
Jones.
Jones. How could I
Special
Okay.
forget?
Delivery Jones.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
won't be
With
surprised.
The
That's
job
probably one of his
guy.
last
Yes.
matches.
with Jesse Ventura, Superstar Billy Graham,
I
and Gorilla Monsoon at
I would have
commentary.
guessed Brooklyn Brawler or Barry Horowitz, but
No, because
I
they were
tried.
both heels. They were
I
both
tried.
heels.
I
And
tried.
Kurt would have been a heel when he first came in,
okay.
regardless.
Mhm.
So yeah, you guys are like, you're almost getting it there. I don't think the rest of this trivia you're probably gonna know. So we're gonna go to Portland. Yes, Kurt was in Portland.
Portlandia.
Yeah, this is Portland,
Yes,
Oregon. In 82, 83, and 84. Okay. If you've been listening to my podcast, you will probably know this answer. But I want to know who Kurt had a big, huge feud with in Portland, Oregon in 82, 83, and part of 84. Who was his big feud? Who was his number one nemesis? Because he was a babyface.
I shall remind people I was not in America at that time.
I wasn't even born yet, D. I didn't come to
Yeah.
86.
I mean, fair
So
enough.
82, 83,
I wasn't
84.
born
Yeah,
in
I
86.
was around either 85 right here.
I was born in '86 too, so like
Yeah. So actually, I found this out because I actually
wait.
looked it up. Go ahead.
Hold on, I'm gonna go with your personal favorite, like a wrestler that you prefer over Curt Hennig any day. Diamond, Dallas, Page. What's his rival?
No, DDP was never in Portland.
yeah, I don't
Oh,
think he ever
fuck.
worked Portland.
Yeah, DDP
No,
was like
he
late
didn't come in
80s.
till AWA, and then
Mm.
there was some stuff he did in NWA. But
I tried. I tried.
it's good. Do the rest of you give up, or do you want to guess?
Yeah, you know, you did
Matt,
mention something.
Matt Bourne.
Close. No, not Matt Bourne, but you're close.
Doink the Clown. That's by the way, you don't know who Matt Bourne
Yeah,
is.
that was Doink the Clown, but he was part of the army that this other person was in. They were in the army, and then eventually it would become the
Rip
Klan.
Oliver.
No, you're close.
Shit.
Who's the other guy?
Buddy
He
Rose.
was the third guy. Buddy Rose. That's right. Playboy Buddy Rose.
Really?
Curt Hennig had a huge feud. Well, that's because I was giving clues out.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to grasp anything. I was hoping it was Diamond Dallas. So obviously, hey folks, listen, I didn't get on the first choice. Technically, it doesn't count. My Jerry the King, I still got the Jerry the King Lawler one. So there we go.
Okay, you got the
There
Jerry
you
the
go.
King Lawler one, but
Yeah,
yeah,
you got that one.
it was
yeah.
Playboy Buddy Rose. Him and Kurt would have a huge feud in 82 and 83. And then late 83, Buddy Rose would actually join Kurt and Billy Jack Haynes when they turned Buddy Rose babyface, and he becomes against the Klan, who is Rip Oliver, the assassin, and eventually Dynamite Kid would also come into it. So they were known as the Klan. In 82, they were known as the Army, and they took out Kurt's dad. So when you see him in Portland for the first time, it's him and his dad against Rip Oliver and Buddy Rose. And then eventually Larry Hennig would leave Portland and go back to AWA, and eventually would leave Kurt there by himself, and Kurt would have a knee versus knee match with Buddy Rose because they both supposedly had knee surgery.
No.
Here's a good one. This is before Kurt was in AWA. Whose match did he referee? Kurt was a referee in the AWA briefly in 83. They were against Adnan Casey and Jerry Blackwell. Who are the two men that were against those two?
And he was a wrestler, right?
They were both wrestlers, yes. One of them went to the WWF, the other one did not.
Adnan Casey went to WWF.
Yes, but who was their opponents?
I don't know. Shit. The
I already said his
Ganyas.
name.
I don't know.
Yeah, one was Greg Gagne. Who was the other
Yeah.
guy? I already said his name. It was his tag team partners. They were known as the High Flyers in the AWA.
Greg Gagne and Jumping Jim Brunzell, isn't it?
Yes. Yes,
Oh.
that is correct. Yes, they were known as the High Flyers in the AWA, and Curt actually refereed one of their matches. He did count Jumping Jim Brunzell down because Casey hit him with his cast. He had a cast on his hand. But Vern Gagne comes out and tells Curt, "Hey, this guy hit my son, or Jumping Jim Brunzell, who was counted out. He hit him with the cast, and Curt reversed the decision. So he disqualified Adnan Casey and made Greg Gagne and Jumping Jim Brunzell the winners. That's correct. Very good, Angel. Yeah, I already said Jumping Jim Brunzell.
Yeah, that's why I was like, okay.
And they were older than Curt by about a couple years. I think Greg was 10 years older than Curt. And I think Jumping Jim Brunzell was like 8 to 9 years older than Curt. So Greg was born in 48, and I think Jumping Jim Brunzell was born in like 50-ish. Like 50, 51. Curt would be born in 58. More trivia. Have you got this good thinking thing?
I'm trying to use my brain.
Okay.
I got my thinking brain right here. In this cup. So.
Hey man, that's not fair. Everyone's drinking except me.
Hey,
water.
that's water for. I got my high gravity beer here.
I got supposedly. I was hearing a story of Winston Churchill. So he suffered with stomach issues. So he'll do a big cup of water with a couple of hints of whiskey. I'm like, okay, let me try that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of helping a little bit, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's actually a good tactic. After all, Winston Churchill, he always had a drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with WrestleMania coming up, okay, because we do have WrestleMania coming up here.
That's right.
So what was the first WrestleMania Curt was ever featured in? Does anyone remember? We did do a watch along to my channel.
WrestleMania 1.
Yeah.
Nope,
Was
it
he
wasn't
on
WrestleMania
No,
1.
was that the one with Blue Blazer?
Oh, shit.
That would be
Which was it?
WrestleMania 4,
Oh,
right?
it was? The
Or
Blue
six.
Blazer?
Not WrestleMania 4. Wasn't WrestleMania 4.
3. I don't know.
No.
No. WrestleMania 3 was the big one with Andre the Giant versus Hogan.
Right, and Curt,
Yeah, but
I
that was
think
the main event, though.
Yeah, but that was what, 87?
Yeah, that would have been 87.
He was AWA champion.
Yeah, so he wouldn't be in 3.
He wasn't in 4. You're close.
5, 6,
5.
7, 8.
It was 5. His first
I shot over.
I had no
WrestleMania was
clue.
5. And yes, you are correct. He did face the Blue Blazer. And I think he was kind of nervous. So I think they were kind of both nervous. So they were kind of going slower. And yes, WrestleMania 5 was at the Plaza in 1989.
Yes, the former
I can't
president
say
of the
that
United
name. Don't say the name. Don't say the name because I
former
won't be able to
president.
promote this.
The,
the person
45th.
who shall not be named.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, let's say.
No, but
I learned that the hard way,
We shall
though.
not name the orange Cheeto.
right.
Yes.
Now,
I like
always
him. Like I'm
remember
saying,
that,
2024. No, I'm not. It was his plaza.
Yeah.
That's where they
remember
held
those
it, and he
matches.
was at ringside, and I
Atlantic City.
innocently said, we threw him out in front of him. Of course, he threw him out in front of him because he was at ringside because it was his plaza.
Right.
I mean, I can't make that up, and I wouldn't say, 2024. I wasn't saying that crap.
Plus also the thing is Plaza at the time. I mean, you're gonna tell me he's not going to show up,
Right?
I mean,
Exactly.
no.
Of course, this man showed up.
Of course.
And being in the front
Of course,
row.
he showed up.
And that's why I tell people, I'd be
If I
like,
had a plaza or an arena named after me, there's a big thing going on, I'm gonna be there.
Especially with your name on it, kid.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Your name's on the building. You gotta care.
Exactly.
That's why I tell some of my TDS friends, and I'm like, yo, if you guys really know about this guy, he loves wrestling, and he would really rile the crowd up. And then you got these people like, but he said this, poo, poo, poo. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's part of his, his shtick. I mean,
That's
But
what
I
they
remember
do.
that match with the Blue Blazer because I was a big Blue Blazer fan. That's when I
Okay.
think he was Owen Hart.
No,
That
And it
was
was
Owen Hart.
Mhm.
That's
kid, right.
right. Yep.
And I remember those days. I mean, I didn't watch it live because we were poor kids in the Bronx. I'm just saying, But I watched the tapes, the videos that would come out, and I remember that match. And for me, I think so. Blue Blazer lost, and I think that was the end of his gimmick at that time.
No,
think
he
he
would
went-
go on to be the Blue Blazer for another a year at least.
Yeah,
And then I
he-
think he just got tired of it. And Brett said he kind of just disappeared. Went back to
Right.
Calgary, Stampede Wrestling.
He come back in the early '90s and be on
Yeah.
Hart, but a part of New Foundation with Jim Neidhart.
Right. And it was I've been seeing on X Owen versus Brett, that whole brother versus brother kind of thing where they had Owen was like supposed to be jealous of Brett and his
Yeah.
success.
Right.
Oh,
Those
Yeah.
matches
Jeez.
were great, though. I mean, it's like Owen and
They
Brett.
were, yeah, because they were both second generation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were brothers.
And then the irony of that Blue Blazer thing is just that he got tired of it, but then he came back, and then that's when that situation.
Well,
happened.
and
He
then the late
became Owen.
'90s, he would become the
The Blue
Blue Blazer
Blazer
once again,
again.
and that's when he fell.
Oh,
Fucking-
please! I was
that
hoping you were
fucking-
gonna bring that up.
I'm
I just
sorry.
didn't
That
want- I didn't-
fucking. That
Well,
fucking
Forget I
Vince
said it.
Russo.
My
Forget I
fault,
said
my
it. We'll
fault,
go
my
to
fault, my
another.
fault. Let's
We'll
go.
go to another
Vince Russo.
trivia. We'll
Let's
go to more
go.
trivia.
Let's go.
trivia.
I'm on
Uh,
fire.
R.I.P. Owen. Owen. Oh God, that was so rough.
More trivia. So, okay. So, who broke Mr. Perfect's winning streak? Who broke Mr. Perfect's winning streak?
Tatanka?
No.
No, it was
He broke somebody else's winning streak, I think.
Was
I
it-
forget who.
Who broke his winning streak? But was
Right.
it televised?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
it was pay-per-view.
Lex Luger?
No.
Shit. And they had a match at WrestleMania 9. That's why I thought.
Right,
But,
but
Mr. Perfect won that one.
Well, no, technically Luger did because the referee didn't see Kurt's feet in the ropes.
Oh.
I got two choices.
Okay.
No.
All
Go
right.
for it.
Wait, hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me go.
What
and
you're
fix
thinking. I smell the wood burning over here, kid.
this. Brutus Beefcake.
Yes. At WrestleMania
shit.
6. At WrestleMania 6.
God damn it.
I
No,
was gonna say the Warrior though.
That's
I was
the
first gonna
last
say the
no,
Warrior.
No. no.
So Hogan
nope.
friend beat him first?
Right. So
Ugh.
if you watch the match, Kurt puts his hand down and he pretends to hit the ring post. Okay. So Beefcake is supposed to do something and put him into the ring, and he goes like this and pops back, and that's
Wow.
when Brutus Beefcake covers him 1, 2, 3. Now this is also the WrestleMania where Lanny Poffo gets his haircut. He was known as the Genius, and he was the manager of Mr. Perfect at the time. So yeah, Lanny got his haircut at the Royal Rumble the first time, and this would be the second time that he got his haircut. And then his famous brother would go on to complain about it because apparently Lanny was bitching about it. And then Savage got mad at Beefcake, and there was supposedly some words that, but they had
Beefcake
already
probably-
planned this, and he never blamed Kurt for any of that stuff. But what year did Lanny Poffo become the Genius, and what year did he become Kurt's manager?
Sorry. Well, 89 was it?
Yep. It was 89. Yep, for both. Yes. Yes, he became the Genius in 89, and he became Kurt's manager in September or October of 89. That's correct.
Yeah, because I remember the Genius being the Genius at that time, like he becoming that character.
Yeah, they
And then-
really kind of screwed him over with that kind of stuff because he was leaping
moments.
Lanny Poffo, and he was more of a job guy. But when they turned him heel, they were going to give him more wrestling, but they said, you're just going to become a manager. So they kind of screwed Lanny out of it. While Randy was, at the top of his game in 88 and 89, they kind of screwed over Lanny, his brother. It wasn't very nice. But Kurt took good care of Lanny. Lanny took a very good care of Kurt. So and this is an easy one. Who became Kurt's manager after Lanny?
Oh,
Bobby,
man.
the brain.
Yes.
Bobby?
Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Bobby.
Well, it was part of that stable. I think they had that stable.
With Flair.
Right.
Do y'all remember the time when Bobby the Brain got put into a rat suit?
By the
Weasel
Ultimate
suit.
Warrior.
Weasel suit. Yeah.
Weasel suit,
That's what
yeah.
they call it, the Weasel.
The Weasel suit, yes. Oh, Bobby. He was like, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
The Ultimate Warrior broke his neck, though, so fuck him.
Yeah. Bobby talks about that Warrior dropped him on his neck, and they didn't do a lot until it was 80 or no, it was 94, 93, 94. He got surgery on it, and that's the whole Brian Pillman thing when he flipped out on Brian Pillman.
He grabbed him by his neck,
he grabbed him by his neck, and he had just had neck surgery.
Yeah.
So
it's like, what the
Bobby
fuck
says,
are you doing?
what the are you doing?
What the
And it was
fuck are
live
you doing?
TV, so they couldn't, they had that 30-second thing. Now when you see it back, and they do take it out, but at the time it was a live show, so they couldn't really they couldn't bleep it or anything.
Yeah, well, what's wrong with you? Don't grab a man by a neck after years of dealing with that pain.
Well, Brian Pillman had the loose cannon gimmick, so he would do whatever the fuck he wanted. So it was like,
right. Here's a good one.
Oh, my neck's starting to hurt now because of that.
Here's a good one. And unless you know his WCW run, when Kurt went into WCW, it was June of '97. It was the end of June. Who did he face at the pay-per-view Hog Wild? Not Bash at the Beach, Hog Wild.
Yeah, because it didn't.
It was his first Hog Wild, 97.
Wait, hold on. Wait, just for clarification, Hog Wild's when you're having the wrestling match in like a moving vehicle and like.
No, Hog Wild was in Sturgis, South Dakota.
Yeah,
and the ring was surrounded by bikers.
Okay, no,
Right.
okay. Well, then I'm missing something else entirely because there was WCW did a match where
with
two guys
Dustin
were wrestling.
Rhodes.
Yeah,
Dustin
that
Rhodes
was Dusty
and,
Rhodes with booking.
Yeah, that was earlier. That was like 94, 95-ish.
Yeah.
But this was
This is 97. So the
Bischoff
NWO
was
is
obsessed.
right.
Bischoff
so
was
the
obsessed
NWO
with
is
bikers.
fully,
So.
the NWO is fully in circuit. They have guys now. They're up to a whole bunch of guys in the NWO, including Buff Bagwell, who just had his Dark Side of the Ring done. So who did he face before Kurt slammed the cage door on Flair's head and became an NWO guy?
Was it Diesel?
Diesel?
Kevin Nash? No.
Kevin
Nash.
No.
Yeah.
No, nobody in the NWO.
No.
But Kurt wasn't NWO yet.
WCW guy.
Yeah. Flair interfered in the match, and
so you gotta be one of the Four Horsemen.
He interfered, but Kurt still
Chris
got the
Benoit?
win. No.
Diamond Dallas Page.
Mongo?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Diamond Dallas Page. Because at the Bash at the Beach, Kurt had just stop it.
Positivity. I hate DDP.
I hate DDP. I hated his gimmick. I hated everything about him. No. So at Bash at the Beach, he was Diamond Dallas Page's tag team partner, but Dallas pulled the rope down and Kurt could have gotten hurt. So we walked out on DDP, and the next pay-per-view at Hog Wild, he faced him in a match. Flair would come out to interfere, but he gets the diamond cutter, and Kurt pins DDP 1, 2, 3. That's what happened. Yeah, that was a good pay-per-view.
Yeah, I remember that Flair match.
I knew it was WCW guy.
You Andy was a WCW guy?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
What's funny is, okay, here's another good trivia question. The NWO at Fall Brawl, it was supposed to be the Four Horsemen who Kurt had just joined, taking Arn Anderson's spot. What did they do to Kurt to take him out of the main event?
Like a knee injury?
Kicked his ass. I don't know.
Well,
know they turn on
there was
him.
it was a part of his body. It was not his knee though.
Okay.
Uh,
Either
took
they
his
did something to
spurs
his
out.
hip or to his leg.
I don't know that one.
His arm.
His
His arm
arm.
was in a sling, guys.
Oh,
He
okay.
came out with his arm in the sling, and when he gets into the double ring cage, he swings the handcuffs because he had handcuffs in the sling, and then hits Steve Mongo McMichael, throws the handcuffs to Kevin Nash, goes over, hits Chris Benoit, throws the other handcuffs to Conan. They handcuff Benoit and McMichael to the cage, and then they beat up on Flair. Basically, Kurt beats up on
Benoit.
Flair and turns to the NWO.
Benoit. He should not be named.
Well,
Right.
you can name him. I
In
watched
WWE
these.
history, WWE ignores him. He doesn't
Well,
exist.
WWE can do that, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to ignore Kurt's matches just because he
Yeah,
faced Chris
yeah.
Benoit in
I'm just saying,
WCW.
he should not be named.
Yeah,
Well,
he should not be named.
Well, but here's the thing. Okay, look, it's a tragedy. Truly, it is. But you just can't dismiss it because number one, it is also calling into question because he had some concussion issues, and I think you still can't ignore what he has done.
Well, no,
in
and
the
like I
business.
said, I don't
Yeah,
stop watching his matches in WCW just because he's with Kurt. In
Yeah.
fact, they were in Minnesota, and Chris Benoit. I mean, this is when Flair came back and was chasing Kurt around, the arena.
Chris Benoit was a great wrestler.
He was a great wrestler.
My little brother loved Chris Benoit for some reason.
I just
even
don't.
though
I don't follow. I think
didn't get it
something else.
either, but it's like
It doesn't add up. The
Yeah.
whole deletion and then self deletion. That doesn't add up to me.
Yeah, there's some
can-
people that feel the same way.
I can buy
Yeah,
conspiracy
like,
theories, but
Chavo Guerrero,
Benoit's, it's like, really? I mean, I don't know. I
because
mean,
he talked to Chris Benoit. Oops, sorry.
He,
Didn't mean
he
to spit.
allegedly had the brain. He allegedly had the brain of an 80-year-old man because of CTE. But how can he
but
travel to towns and do that shit if he was an
They say there was a
80-year-old man with
major
dementia?
cover up, though. They
You
say
know?
that's a major cover up. Chavo Guerrero talks about this very eloquently. He said he talked to Chris beforehand, and Chris was never in a bad mood. He was not suffering from anything. He was not. Nancy was not on the verge of leaving him. They were having the greatest marriage of all. But that's from Chavo Guerrero. So don't quote me. Quote him.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
If Chris, he had no as far as I know, he had no reason to do that to his family, and then self-delete. But the same,
Right.
allegedly, I heard it was Kevin Sullivan who did that, or
He was a part of
orchestrated that
it. Yeah, I
somehow.
heard he was a part of it because he was bitter about Nancy leaving him for Chris Benoit.
I always heard that story.
Yeah, I don't know what to believe when it comes to Chris Benoit, but
Something just doesn't add up, basically.
yeah, it doesn't add
Yeah,
up.
it
Because
doesn't
it
add up.
came
But
out
again, that's the
quickly.
Chavo Guerrero thing. He talks about it on Chris Jericho's podcast. I only listened to it because it was, a different side of the story. And I love to hear all sides of the story. I don't like to hear the narratives.
Chavo was really close to Chris, and same thing with Eddie Guerrero, which is why he's a source when it comes down to both of their deaths. But
Right.
I don't know. I mean, Chavo is like, he's not his uncle. He's not Eddie. Eddie was a superstar, but he was more like he was there. He's a good worker.
Right. But I mean, he knew that there was something that doesn't add up here. And I think it was a major cover up. Yeah. Okay, more trivia, guys. So in 98, Kurt disappears for a couple weeks, goes to Japan, comes back. I'm trying to think who he did face. I think it was yeah, okay. So he has a match when he comes back in September 15th of 1998. And Rick Rude, of course, is at his side, but is his manager. Who did Kurt face when he came back? From Japan.
Japan, the man from Japan.
That's
DDP?
right. No.
Shit.
He came back from Japan?
He came back from Japan. He was in Japan for like a week, but he did have off usually around January, sort of February. That's when his time that he got to be with his family. Because
Big
Wade Boggs
Michael.
was Wade
Shit.
Boggs was actually at ringside, and you have to understand, Curt and Wade Boggs, who was the third base Yankees guy, at
96
this
world
time.
champion. Yes, I love
Yeah,
Wade
so
Boggs.
him and Curt were friends. There's a
Hmm.
story that Wade talks about or tells on the documentary that they did for Curt. It's called "The Life and Times of Mr. Perfect." If you want to check that out.
Mhm.
Wade Boggs tells about a hunting story that him and Curt went hunting one time, and there was this fence, and Curt said, "I think we should go around," and Wade said, "Nah, it's just a barbed wire fence. It's fine." And he ended up going upside down, slid his leg completely up to like almost his groin area. And Kurt's
Ugh.
watching this, trying not to laugh. And Curt goes, "Well, I guess I'm gonna have to carry you." And he carried Wade Boggs to a car and took him to the hospital. And Wade said the doctor told him that if Curt had not done that, that Wade would have lost his life. So they were absolutely great friends from there on.
I would like to thank Curt Hennig because without that, the Yankees would have won 96, the world title. So, but yeah,
So
I mean, I love
Wade would
Curt even
actually
more
show
now.
up to Curt's matches a lot. Okay. So whenever they say, "Oh, Wade Boggs is here, third baseman for the Yankees," it's because Curt and him were very good friends. But it would be his match coming back from Japan and his time off.
I don't know. Who the fuck did he
But you said that the wrestler was Japanese?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, he came back from
Ric
Japan.
Flair.
No.
Ric Flair?
No.
Mm-mm.
The Nature Boy.
I won't be surprised somebody from NWO.
No, he was in the NWO. He was still in the NWO at this time.
The Giant?
No.
Big Show.
Give up. He
Prince
ran
Akia.
around. I'll give you a clue. He ran around with Jim Cornette. He was with Jim Cornette at one point. He never left WCW.
Bobby
Eaton. Yes.
Bobby Eaton. Yes.
Yes. Bobby Eaton was his first match back from Japan and his time off.
I guess Bobby Eaton was the guy that made WCW.
If you watch that match,
Saturday
at the end of the match, when he pins Bobby Eaton, he actually talks to him. So he hides his head. Curt was known for hiding his head whenever he would talk to a wrestler. He would either hide it in the hair, or he would like go like this, or he would bend over somehow and try to make it look like he wasn't talking to him. But eventually, once he beats Bobby Eaton, talks to him, gets out of the ring, starts talking to Wade Boggs.
Wow.
Who would he face at the pay-per-view? Not Super Bra, but he would face this person at Uncensored 98.
Huh.
Come on, Angel. You should know this.
Bret Hart?
Yes. yes. He would face Bret Hart at Uncensored. They would start their feud again.
Yeah.
Because Bryan Adams comes into it. On that same episode of Nitro, after the Bobby Eaton match, Bryan Adams will come out and have this like overcoat on. Okay. No one can tell he's NWO yet. And he will eventually say, "You got a friend, Brett," and he'll extend his hand, but he'll hold his hand till Curt comes into the ring, and then Bryan Adams takes off the coat, and you see the NWO shirt. So yes, he will. Bryan Adams will eventually. They will stoke their feud again, and they'll talk about like I think Curt does the promo. "Well, your father never beat my father. My father's better than your father." That kind of thing that they started at King of the Ring, but never really finished. Who wins the match? Do you remember, Angel, who wins the match?
No.
I would think Bret Hart.
Yes. How?
Oh, okay.
How did he win?
Knowing WCW at that time, somebody must have
interfered. I don't remember who won the match.
It was Bret Hart, but how did he win? How did Curt lose?
With a perfect plex?
No.
That would have been crazy.
I don't think Curt would have let him beat him with his finish.
Yeah,
Right.
it was a Hennig plex
I don't
by
think-
then.
Yeah, I don't think Kurt would let him beat him with his finish, but
No, this wasn't like Shawn Michaels, and he had to help Shawn Michaels get him into his
Yeah.
own move.
Brett helped Shawn Michaels into the sharpshooter, which is like the worst.
That's right.
But no, I know Kurt didn't tap. I know that.
Yes, he
the
did.
sharpshooter.
Yes, he
Oh, he
did.
did?
He tapped to the sharpshooter before Rick
Oh.
Rude could come in and bash Brett
Oh
over the head.
wow!
Yes,
No,
you got
okay,
that one. That was good.
Oh, okay. Like,
Yeah, he won with the
I was
sharpshooter.
like, I didn't know he would. I know he didn't tap to the sharpshooter. It's like he
Yes,
did.
he
It's
did.
like-
Yes, he did. He did. He tapped to the sharpshooter just as Rick Rude was trying to come into the ring to bash Brett from
Hart,
behind,
yeah.
and then they ended up, taking Brett out of action for a while. He would actually interfere and take Brett out of the picture.
Oh wow!
For a couple of months or weeks, I think. I'm not really. I do remember on April 20th, which was my birthday, in 1998, Bret Hart actually turned to the NWO. He actually helped Hulk Hogan get the belt back.
Yes.
So on April 20th, 1998,
I do
my
remember
birthday, I
that
turned 12 years
because-
old. I turned 12 years old in 98 at this time, and that was the Nitro that Bret turned to the NWO and helped Hulk Hogan win the
And
belt.
I was like, why
I
the fuck
hated
did
that.
Brett help Hogan after everything
Because-
everything Hogan did to him?
Because Hogan probably had a lot of push and pull over there
Yeah,
at
yeah, that's the
WCW.
line.
And,
I didn't know
and,
at the
and,
time.
and it was probably a way to screw over Bret Hart in the long run, because what did
Yeah.
WCW do with Bret Hart? Nothing.
Not
Yeah, they
dick.
really didn't do anything with Bret.
And
But
then
they
put him
rekindled the Bret Curt Hennig thing.
which were great matches.
Yeah, but it didn't
It was a
last.
good match. It
like
was
the
a good
thing
it
is,
match.
didn't leak to anything.
It was a great match.
like WCW, if Ted Turner didn't have his own problems here and there, I mean, WCW could have become something so much grander, and they had the money, but they just had, crazy people run the show. And I will never trust any word coming from Hogan, because his version of WCW is way different than everybody else's.
Especially Starrcade '97. I mean, his version was ridiculous. You
Well-
saw that,
God.
But I mean,
that biography.
the thing is, Sting, and I sort of agree with Eric Bischoff, where Hogan looked at him and said, "Sting's not ready. He's not ready. He wasn't in the gym. He looked horrible. He looked like he hadn't slept. He wasn't hitting the gym. He literally looked like
That's
he
all
wasn't
true.
ready to wrestle."
That's all true, but the fans were behind Sting. Just put the belt on him.
Right. Right.
Even if you beat him a week later.
Not even if the fans are behind him, if the guy ain't ready, the guy ain't ready.
Doesn't matter.
That's
You
true.
beat him a week later. That's fine, but at least you
Yeah.
got the moment.
Yeah, but then
but
again,
that was the biggest. It's kind of like WrestleMania for WWE. Starrcade was their biggest, extravaganza of the year. That's why I think
but-
they were like, well, I mean, we got to go out there and do something.
They messed
Sting
up.
got the belt back anyway. I mean,
Hogan-
even if it was supposed to be a fast count, Bischoff says it was a oops. It still was.
Hogan,
He still got the belt back.
Hogan, they should have, even if it was I don't know. I mean, I would have put the belt on Sting, even if a
But
week
they
later or a
did.
month later.
Yeah, but they
I know,
did.
but
then
but
they
not
ended
in
up
that-
taking it from him.
not in that shitty way where Hogan takes 95% of the match and then beats Sting clean before
Yeah,
Bret
but
Hart came
like
in the
a-
ring.
But like Eric Bischoff said, it was a fast count, and the referee forgot about that or mishandled it or something, and did a
Yeah.
regular count instead of a fast
Or-
count.
Or as Nick Patrick claimed that Hulk came to him, is like, oh yeah, do a slow count, man. Do a slow
Oh,
count.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, he did a
Whoa.
Nick
Yeah, I
Patrick
didn't hear
did a
about that.
podcast like 4 or 5 years ago when he did it, they gave his version, and Hulk said, "Oh, give me a slow
Interesting.
count." And then I think what
Wow.
Sting said, "Do a fast count." Sting said, "Do a fast count," and then he couldn't get a hold of Bischoff and Nick Patrick, so he didn't know what to do.
Okay.
So Nick
We just
Patrick
did a
like,
slow count.
yeah, you know what? I'm listening
Yeah.
to Hogan because he's the guy, so I'm gonna listen to Hogan. He did a slow
No,
count.
your first mistake. Don't listen to Hogan.
Yeah,
Well,
but Hogan was the
he
guy.
had the
Hogan-
sway and he had
yeah,
the
Hogan had the
politics.
sway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
you're
had the
right.
stroke. All right.
Well, he went with Hogan. He was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do a slow count. I'm gonna keep my job and do a slow count. 1, 2, 3." And I did a slow count. I'm gonna keep my job. I know.
Right. So more
Mhm.
trivia. We're getting down to the nitty gritty here.
The nitty and the
Alright.
gritty.
Right. So, does everyone remember the first song that the West Texas Rednecks came out with?
Rap sucks.
Close.
Shit. I don't know then because I
I
mean,
do
shit,
remember something like that. I heard
No, no,
something.
it was like wasn't rap sucks, but it sounded like crap or something or like
Rap is
there's
crap. That's
rap.
correct.
Yes.
I
How
do
do I
what
know
was
remember
that?
something
How do
like
I know
that.
what
that?
was the
Wait,
second
wait.
song?
Ask me, folks. How do I know that? Because Miss Richie Perfect told me a long time ago, like 2 months ago. Two
That
That's
months
that,
right.
ago.
That's
that
right,
Kurt,
because it's one
Kurt
of my
Kurt was the
favorite.
best rapper.
Well, let's put it this way. The interview I'm going to play a little bit of here. In this interview, he does come out and say, he does like all music. Kurt loved all music, but it's just they needed something to kind of counteract the rap that was going on. So, and he liked country music to begin with, so they just kind of put it all together, and it was the West Texas Rednecks. Now, the first song. What's the second song they came out with? They did come out with another song. There's two songs that they came out with, and I don't think I've ever mentioned it because it wasn't really as big as Rap is Crap. But Jeff Jarrett would go on to use this as an entrance song. Jeff Jarrett
Chosen One?
liked it. What?
The guy who claimed to be the chosen one. I don't
the
think
chosen
Right.
one. Yeah.
Right. He would
Yeah.
go on to have this as his entrance music because he loved it so much.
That was the one with the roadie. That song.
Yeah.
Brody.
No,
What?
no, that song.
the
That
Road
remember
Dog?
with Jay. What was it? The entrance was the entrance.
My
with,
mother loved that song.
It was an entrance song, but it
It's a
had
WWF though. That was years later.
no. This was in WCW.
I know,
And it
but I'm
actually
saying
had Kendall Windham in because Kendall Windham would go on to join the West Texas Rednecks after Bobby Duncombe Jr. would leave. So Kendall Windham was Barry Windham's brother, who had been in jail because him and his father, Blackjack Mulligan, would get into a counterfeiting thing. I just heard Barry Windham talk about this. The FBI was at Barry Windham's house watching him 24/7, even though Barry Windham says he had nothing to do with the counterfeiting.
Okay.
Now, his father and his brother would go to jail. I don't know for how long, but Kendall Windham would eventually join the West Texas Rednecks in WCW in 1999. There was a second song that they actually had. One of the wives was in it in the music video. I've seen it one time, and it's a good
I don't
song.
know
It
this
just
one.
didn't do as well as Rap is Crap.
I don't know.
Anybody?
The Rap is Crap one, the one I know, because you mentioned it.
I-
many
There was a
times,
second one. There was a
I
second
don't
one.
know.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I mean, I got it half. I got 2.5 questions right.
I got a few right too. So it's like
It's called Good Old Boys. If you look it up, if you
the
look it
good
up
old
on
boys.
Good Old
Shit.
Boys, if you look it up, there is I think it's Kendall's wife is in it with a baby, if I remember correctly. I only saw it one time on YouTube. So YouTube does have it somewhere. So if you look it up, just look up Good Old Boys WCW songs. You definitely will find it. And yes, Jeff Jarrett loved it so much that he used it as entrance music.
Okay.
Here's something that people don't know. Who wrote Rap is Crap?
Jimmy Hart.
Yes, Jimmy Hart. Okay, you did know that.
Jimmy Hart is
The only
surprised.
reason
Jimmy
why-
Hart wrote that
Okay.
song.
The only
and,
reason why I know that is because Jimmy Hart wrote Honky Tonks Man entrance music,
Yes, he did.
which is why I know he writes music, which is why I took that
right,
guess.
and he wrote a very popular song as well. Do the thing you do, or do the thing you love, or something. But it was an old rock and roll song that someone ended up doing. And he also if you watch the Life and Times of Mr. Perfect, someone says, I forget who it was, but they said they needed this. I think it was either Eric Bischoff or somebody had said, Jimmy Hart had just wrote this song and they needed something for the rap guys because Master Pete and those guys were coming out with Conan and Rey Mysterio, and they said they needed a country kind of thing, and Jimmy Hart had just written a country song, so they gave it to the West Texas Rednecks, and that's when they started the West Texas Rednecks, and that's how that whole thing got started. So yeah, and Curt, if you know anything about him, he actually was not a big fan of the West Texas Rednecks because they were not as high on the card as he thought they should have been. So,
well, if I were booking in WCW, I mean, looking at Curt Hennig and those guys, they would have been
well,
on
Conan
top
says this on my when he
over
answered my
Jarrett.
email. Yeah, when he answered my email, Conan said, I just told him, you're Curt Hennig. Let's just go out and let's just do this, And then Curt, was like, yeah, let's just do this. Screw it. The heck. I like country music and, I like all this stuff. And in fact, during the the episode of Eric Bischoff, he lets out that I think it's Conrad Thompson that says this. There is a bar in Memphis where Curt had his own little seat section where a lot of country music stars would also eat and stop by. That's how much Curt loved country music.
Not the legend.
Yeah, he
By
loved...
the way, hold on, folks. Happy birthday to you, buddy, wherever you may be.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Curt. Mwah. We love you. We miss you. So a little bit more trivia. We'll do a couple more if I can think of any. So you guys know he came back into 2002. Yes?
Yeah, of course. Because
WWF,
because obviously him and Brock Lesnar had that toe-to-toe
Dark
slug
match.
Yeah,
They had the dark match. Yeah.
So they had that. Yeah.
Okay. So do you know in no, it was April of 2002, he had a tag match with someone. Who was it?
Kurt
Tag
Angle?
match.
Tag
No.
match, yes.
Kurt Angle.
I'm sorry, go
wasn't
ahead.
it?
No.
Oh. Val Venus? I don't know.
No, not Val Venus.
No, it wasn't Val Venus. He did face Val Venus, but in a 1-on-1 competition. And I think Kurt won. I don't think Sean won. You guys are going to kick yourselves. You're going to kick yourselves because he actually did face this person in WWF in a singles competition. Back when it was WWF. But he was tag team partners with this person. No.
I know it was an Austin.
Edge?
No.
Bob Van Dam.
No.
Fuck.
The Rock?
No.
No.
You're going to kick yourselves because at WrestleMania 7, he had a disqualification against this person. No, Flair wasn't in it yet.
Hogan?
No.
Okay,
Hogan wouldn't come back.
The Big Boss Man.
Ah!
The Big Boss Man went back to WWF. Remember, he was in the corporation.
Shit.
And he was helping Vince McMahon with his cronies. And he was against Austin a couple times. In fact, he would hit Austin with this knife stick.
Yeah.
And eventually he would stay a heel with Curt, and they would have a tag match in April of 2002.
Yeah, because I remember.
I think it was against Kristen and Edge. I think.
Wow. And he had a big bossman in one of the main events or something like that.
Yeah, WrestleMania 7, he went against the Big Boss Man, and it was a disqualification because Haku and the Barbarian would come out. This is when Curt had hurt his back. He just hurt his back, and he couldn't wrestle as much. So that's why the match didn't go on for very long, because after this match, you see him a couple of times on Primetime Wrestling, and then you don't see him again till 91. Well, in SummerSlam 91 when he's against Brett.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me see. Everybody knows what Kurt's last match was.
That was the one in TNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The last matches are always sad, man.
Yeah.
And
that
this
was
one
a,
was just
but
utter
it was
bullshit,
a terrible
kid.
match too.
It was a terrible match. It was him and David Flair on an
Flair.
on a
Mhm.
pole match.
Yeah.
And I think
That
he
was his
actually
last
won it.
match.
Yeah, I think he actually won it.
Still, always the last matches. There's always that bittersweet stuff.
Yeah, he
there.
won.
Yeah,
But
he
still,
won.
Kurt
but
won.
some of them are always still crap though. Like
That was awful. Like, oh yeah, your last match against David Flair. It was like Ric Flair's, loser son for no reason. Here.
yeah, and of course the tragedy that goes on with the Flares. Eesh.
Right.
Do we
Well,
have to
Well,
I
watch
know
and-
David is no longer with us, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, ultimately,
I mean Reese. David is
yeah.
still alive. Reese
Yeah.
Oh,
is
David's
not.
still
Reese.
alive. I thought
Reese.
David is
okay.
still alive. Reese is the one who self-deleted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah, he OD'd.
Mm.
Yeah. Flair talks about that. I don't know if he talks about it on his podcast anymore, but something about Jim Cornette had said that he got up and started talking about Reese for some reason at a comedy special. Apparently Flair was at a comedy special and got up and started talking about Reese. I don't know.
Yeah, Rick probably got drunk or something and just
Yeah, he got
went
drunk.
off.
He definitely got
Mhm.
drunk and started, heckling the comedian and started talking about Reese for some reason. Wow. You guys do know a couple of things. Oh boy. Who was okay, you may or may not know this person. Who was Kurt tagged with in 85? This is before
So before WWF, then.
Yeah, this is before WWF. This is AWA.
Before
And
Mr.
it's
Perfect.
It's
pretty
before
much.
Mr. Perfect. He was as himself. He was still a baby face. And it's before he was tag team champions with Scott Hall in the
Sorry, I was
AWA.
about to say Scott Hall, but you're talking about before?
Yeah,
that
this is
would have been before.
it's right before. It would be right before.
How before?
This-
How before? Is this 81, 83? Is this
It's
82?
It's 85.
Yeah.
He
Right
would have been
before
in
he
AWA. Yeah.
He would have been in the AWA. He was in the
Right.
AWA, and he was
Who'd he beat? Or who'd he
no, who was he
tag
tag team with? And usually they were against Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel. That's usually who they would fight against.
Oh.
Well, don't
Yeah.
tell me it was Larry Zbyszko.
No, it wasn't Larry Zbyszko. No, him and Kurt never tagged, but this person, he does talk about this person briefly. And this person was in WCW with. I'm trying to think when he was in WCW. He was in briefly WCW. I want to say he was with Austin, maybe. He might have been with Stunning Steve Williams. He might have been in during that time. I think. I think he was.
It's not Brian Pillman, no?
No, but you're close.
Wait, 85, right?
85, right before he became tag champions with Scott Hall. And in fact, he was the AWA champion with Scott Hall on April 20th, 1986. He defended those titles. Him and Scott Hall defended their titles on my birthday, on the day of my birth, against the Rough Riders.
Wait, wasn't with his pop then?
He was on and off, yes, but this other person is more known for bodybuilding, but he was in WCW briefly as well. After the AWA.
Scott McGee?
Sting?
No, he was never
Scott
tag team with
McGee.
Sting.
Scott McGee was that big muscle guy who was in WWF briefly.
Well, this guy was a big muscle guy, but he wasn't very well liked and didn't really have a big career.
I was gonna say the Ultimate Warrior, but no.
He never tag teamed with
not Paul Roma.
No, Paul Roma does tell a story about Kurt though. I can tell you after if anyone gets this answer. I don't know if you know this guy or not. You'd have to know WCW, like early WCW.
Early
I think he was in with Cornette when Cornette was in WCW.
Well,
Because Cornette doesn't like him either.
early WCW had to be
early
on Saturday, those
WCW.
Saturday nights. You remember Angel? Those
Yeah.
WCW Saturday night.
That's the
whatever.
first time I watched WCW in the early 90s.
And he
No,
was
no.
in briefly that I know of.
Okay, because he said briefly.
But nobody liked him because he wasn't very well liked.
I bet you we'll know the name, but
It's not the Ultimate Warrior. I mean,
You
he
pro-
No,
No,
I don't
no.
know. Then I don't know. I don't know.
No,
I don't
but,
know.
but I
No,
think
I'm kidding. I don't know who it
Warrior,
is.
when he first came in, he was known as the Dingo Warrior.
Dingo Warrior.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was
nobody
awful.
freaking knew what the heck that was.
Yeah.
Let's just call yourself the Warrior.
Vince was like, "What's
Eventually,
a Dingo
yeah.
Warrior?
What's a
It's
Dingo
called
Warrior?
The Ultimate Warrior, pal." It's
I've
called
seen
that.
the Ultimate Warrior's Dark Side of the Ring, so that's how I
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's called Dingo.
Do you guys give up?
I don't know.
I have to surrender. Yes.
Yeah.
Tom Zank.
Oh,
Zank.
fucking Tom
Oh.
Zank.
He was briefly with Tom Zank in AWA. It was before Scott Hall.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. He and then Tom Zank would eventually have a very short
In WCW.
stint in WCW.
Yeah, of
right.
course.
Fucking Tom
He was
Zank.
also in a bodybuilding. Tom Zank was in bodybuilding. And there was an interview they did with Curt and with Tom, and Curt makes the they kind of say, "Oh, Tom, are you single?" And he goes, "Yeah, I am actually." And Curt goes, "Yeah, I get all his side, everyone he tosses to the side." I'm like, Curt. So yes, it was in the AWA. Very briefly, they were tag teams. Actually, they were also a tag team in '84. So it's like '84, and then they split them up, and then they put them back in '85.
wow.
As Deep knows, there is a match with Curt and the Rockers. They were against a bunch of people on the other side that I don't remember right now. But there's also Curt did have some matches with his dad. He also had some matches with this person who I mentioned earlier. And it ended in a double count out in Las Vegas in 86, May of 86.
I wasn't at the Nick.
No. Close.
Was it Gagne?
No. What
No,
year was it again?
Not Greg Gagne, no. He would eventually turn on Greg in 88, right before he left.
Wait. So wait. Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. Who did Curt face in May of 86? It was a person I mentioned earlier in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Was it Scott?
No.
It wasn't Scott.
No, he wouldn't
Nick?
be against
Nick?
Scott till WWF.
Nick?
No, not Nick Bockwinkel. Nope.
Okay.
Razor. Wow.
He would be against Scott Hall. He
Hey,
would be tag
Chico.
teams with Scott Hall in 85 and 86. And then
I
87, they broke him up.
I just saw Scott Hall's biography on A&E.
Yes.
It was
Yep.
like,
And they kind of glossed over all that stuff. And I
Yeah,
felt
it-
bad because like what they do show on TV is the non-title match they had with the Long Riders, and the
Mhm.
celebration was from their match that they actually won when they got the tag team titles. It
And
didn't
what-
make any damn sense.
yeah, that was
this was 86. He lost his belt.
He lost the AWA championship belts. They split up him and Scott Hall, and he would eventually go to Las Vegas, Nevada with Billy Robinson and Larry Nelson, and Billy Robinson would do the commentary.
I don't know.
This person was a heel too. They did not like him.
Greg.
I mentioned
Gate?
I mentioned
No.
him earlier. No, not Greg Gagne. No, he wouldn't turn on Greg until 88.
I've had too much beers. I don't remember.
Been drinking, and I'm looking forward to take a shot of whiskey after all this.
we have
Yeah, I mean,
we have a drunk
Hello,
angel.
hello.
We have
I
a drunk
drank 2
angel.
full cups of these, so yeah.
It wasn't Rick Rude, right?
It was not Rick Rude. No, he would never ever face Rick Rude, though the question was posed to Rick At Survivor Series 89, Rick pulls the rope down and Kurt goes tumbling out of the ring. And they kind of get up and start having words and stuff. And it was posed after that they have a feud, but Rick turned it down.
Mm. Yeah, they got me on this one.
Now this you guys are gonna laugh. You guys are gonna be like,
Diamond Dallas Page? No, not Diamond.
No.
No, yeah, come on, kid, come on.
Yeah, kid wants to do for Diamond.
Larry Sabisco.
Larry
that
Sabisco.
fucker.
Yes.
They
They faced each other several
Twice
times. Several times. But in Las Vegas, Nevada, it was on ESPN too. They had aired this on ESPN. This match. He was against Larry Sabisco in Las Vegas, and it was Larry sucks. Larry sucks. They hated him. He was a heel. And it was a double count out because Larry kept grabbing Kurt's tights and pulling him down and pulling him out of the ring. So they got double counted out.
Well, that's
was
why
the
the
end of the
AWA
match.
survived for so long because of the ESPN deal.
Yeah, they were on ESPN. And if you ever listen to Greg Gagne, he always says, Vince was trying to take their spot. And so they would offer the guy like $2,000 a week. And when their stuff didn't air, he called the guy back and said, well, Vince called me up and gave me $5,000.
That was San Francisco, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were trying to get the spot, and Vince actually ended up stealing it from him.
Well, Vince offered me $5,000 a week, so we didn't call you again.
Yeah, so we didn't call you back or tell you that we weren't going to air your stuff. We just aired their stuff. And that's how Vince kind of took over little by little.
And he fucked the Gagnes.
Yes.
Yeah, he really screwed the Gagnes. So speaking of Greg Gagne, Kurt would eventually have some matches with him. He would turn against him. And then there was a special strap match. But neither Kurt nor Greg were in the straps. Who was?
What year?
This would be 88, early 88. In AWA.
In AWA. And it was a
strap match.
A strap match.
Yeah, the two were strapped to each other, but it was not Greg nor Kurt.
Oh, Vern was retired by then, so it could have been Vern.
Yeah, it was. Who was the other person?
Oh.
Vern Gagne versus, I don't know.
Vern Gagne.
Well, they were outside. They weren't allowed to go inside. It was Vern and else.
I can't believe Vern worked the match in 88. But I thought he was retired.
Again, he was outside and they were strapped to each other. So they couldn't get into the ring. You guys mentioned him earlier.
We did?
Diamond?
Diamond?
No. Diamond.
No. Someone who would be in Kurt's corner if he wasn't strapped to Vern Gagne.
Not Larry.
Yeah, Larry Hennig. Yeah,
they were
strapped to each other. Vern, yes. Yeah. So Greg talks about this too. If you ever seen an interview with Greg, he does talk about this. They had a strap match where the two fathers were strapped to each other, and the other would pull the other one down if they tried to go in and help their son. Now, Greg says, this is what Greg says, that their fathers were yelling stuff at their son. This is how you should do this. Do this position. Do that position. Or do this move. Do that move. And Kurt was like really nervous. He didn't want to like let his dad down. But Greg says, you know what, Kurt? Let's just go out there and do our own thing. And he was good as pie after that. Yeah. Yeah, it was Larry Hennig and Vern Gagne were both strapped to each other. And whenever they would try to get into the ring, the other one would pull the other one back and say, nope, you can't help your son.
I misunderstood
Kurt would go on. Yes, Kurt would go on to win. And then he would go on to do a famous interview where he would crack Greg over the head with the belt because he did have the championship belt and the belt was broken in pieces. and Curt would eventually have a interview, and he would go like, I can beat you, Greg, so many times. I'm gonna go get my little sister. She can beat you up. And my thought was, wait, how much of a baby are we talking here? Are we talking a baby sister, as in like a baby? So it was really cool that he's like, I'll just get my baby sister to beat you up. So I found that quite by accident when I was looking through AWA stuff. But yeah. But yes, that Curt was extraordinary and extraordinary, and he had a very long and career. The only time I've ever heard of him having a match with like Adrian Adonis would be when I talked to Jesse. Again, you can check out those episodes. It was episode, I think, 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 or something. And Jesse remembers a lot of things, but he doesn't really remember a lot of matches with Curt. And he did have a match with Curt in 81 in the WWF, and he won because Curt was more like a job guy. He just got into the business.
Yeah.
It was 81, and his official, the box I have, his debut was 79. He says it was 1980. So 79, 80 was his debut. And then he would, go on to face with his dad. He would be with his dad, and it was him and his dad and Jesse Ventura and Adrian Adonis. They would beat up on Curt, and then he would do the hot tag to his dad. And eventually, Larry would take care of Jesse and Adrian Adonis. So that's very, again, you would know that if you listen to my podcast. It's gotta be one more question. One more question. One more question.
I'm sure you can figure out you got something.
Yeah. How did SummerSlam 93 end? Did Curt 3P?
SummerSlam 90.
No looking it up. No looking it up. Who did he face? And how did the match end?
I'm not
SummerSlam 93.
I'm not looking it up.
This is the last trivia question.
Why am I being accused of cheating? It's because I ran out straight. It's because I ran it out straight.
It looks like your hands are on the keyboard, kid.
No, they're not. Hold on.
Hands where I can see them. Hands where I can see them. Oh no!
Very comfortable.
We're gonna get a pants check.
Yes. I got my things right here. My keyboard's like way in front of me. Like if I my microphone be able to pick up the keyboard. So here, I'll show you. I'm not typing in anything to be able to hear my keyboard right now. That's me on the keyboard.
Okay. So
no, I'm not cheating. But I got three monitors right here.
Okay. So who did Curt, and you can't cheat, who did Curt face in 1993 at SummerSlam 93, and how did the match end? We're going to do a watch along to this very match. I think it's episode 30, in fact, and we're only on 25.
So SummerSlam, he's in WCW, right?
No,
WWF.
He's in WWF.
Oh, right.
This is in the middle of his babyface run.
93.
Was it Razor?
No, but you're close.
He
worked with
Shawn Michaels.
Wait.
It was Shawn Michaels. Yes. How did the match end? How did the match end?
Just like a lot of his matches, no DQ.
Yeah, because Diesel had just come in as Shawn Michaels' guard.
Kevin Nash just came in. Yeah.
Kevin Nash had just come in. Diesel had Shawn Michaels. He faced Shawn Michaels at 1993 SummerSlam, and it ended in a DQ because Diesel, who was Kevin Nash, had just come in as the bodyguard
Yeah.
of
Oh, the
Shawn
insurance
Shawn
policy.
Michaels.
For
Okay.
some
He
reason,
just
That's
came
right.
in. Yeah.
That's right. Very good, D. I knew you would know that.
And Nash.
And actually,
Nash couldn't
yes,
work, but he was
right.
just
Nash
there
couldn't work.
as a big bodyguard, basically.
And the last question is, did he, Kurt didn't 3P, but he actually did. He actually did. There is a match that I have downloaded off of YouTube where Kurt wins the belt from Shawn Michaels and 3Ps the Intercontinental belt. But no one knew that because it was a house show and you had to actually physically be there.
Oh,
So
wow.
yes, he does 3P. He just doesn't do it at SummerSlam.
Wow.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know.
That was a really good match, and like I said, I think it's episode 30. We do that watch along, and yes, Diesel is in it because Diesel will pull Kurt out of the ring, and then they'll start like fighting, because he will take Kurt and put his head into the stairs, and so
Yeah.
it looks like Diesel like stares him. So yeah, it will be a disqualification due to Diesel's interference.
Curses
'Cause he
upon you,
was-
Diesel. Now he doesn't break kayfabe.
Oh,
When the whole clique gave a hug goodbye to each other.
That
How he
was
does that to-
96, right?
Yeah,
that was 96.
yeah, that was.
that was still a big deal back in the day.
It was,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Triple H had to eat shit for a long time.
Well, yeah, and that's what's funny
Yeah.
about it. They couldn't get revenge on Diesel and Razor, obviously
They
Scott
were
Hall and
gone.
Kevin Nash, because they were
Yeah.
gone.
Mhm.
Shawn was the champ because they didn't want to screw with him, so they went after Hunter.
Hunter. Mm-hmm.
So he kind of took the fall for all four of them, actually.
But everything happens for a reason because Austin won King of the Ring in
yeah,
96.
Austin would ring the King of the Ring,
Yeah.
and the start
And
of
he
Austin
would lead to-
316 would start. Yep.
So everything happens
So-
for a reason, but
Yeah, everything happens for a reason. But Triple H was said to have supposedly was supposed to win that.
he would have
King
won
of the Ring.
that year.
Yeah, he would have won that year if he hadn't screwed up with the click.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we are going to just listen a little bit to. I'm going to share. Okay. Let me know if you guys can hear this. Hopefully you can.
Uh-huh.
Okay. We're just going to listen along. This was a radio interview that was done in the year 2000 with Kurt. I don't know who the gentleman's name is that does this. But he does an interview, and we're going to listen along a little bit to it. Just hear Kurt's wittiness and jokiness. I do have some of this downloaded off of YouTube, but this is kind of like the whole thing in a nutshell. So go ahead. Can you guys hear that?
Pro Wrestling Radio, as we listen to the words, wisdom, and personality of the late, great Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. Gargiulo with Curt Hennig. And Curt, the big question to a lot of fans out there listening to the show now is, what are you doing with yourself these days?
Well, I always keep myself in shape. I mean, that's kind of like a family tradition in the Hennig family to stay in shape, and I'm just still enjoying.
As you should.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of fishing with my buddies that I've missed out on for the last 15 years or so, but
Right.
I'm having a good time.
Good deal. Good deal. You got a pay-per-view match. I know you already taped with Dennis Rodman. It airs December the 1st. How did that whole deal go in Australia?
I think it's going to be one of the most exciting pay-per-views that, I know the WWF and the WCW, they got their things out there, but the deal with Dennis Rodman here coming from the basketball scene, I don't think people realize what a great athlete this guy really is. I mean, he played with the Bulls all these years and leading rebounder, but he's got his hands full and down under in Australia, and I can't wait to see this thing, and I know the people are all waiting for it. The calls I'm getting is unbelievable.
Sure. What was his work ethic like going into the match?
I didn't have any problem with anything that he does. I mean, that he's a basketball player, but I don't know if he wants to earn his living in wrestling or what he's trying to do, or if it's part of his bad boy image. But if that's all bad boy he can be, if that's basketball's bad boy, they better call me. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, you'll be shooting a double, triple.
Hey, but I'm not taking it to this guy. I'm telling you what, he's a tall, lanky, he's a great athlete, and that's pretty much what a lot of the wrestlers are, and he's a street fighter, you know.
Sure. Now, since you're not actively in the scene as far as with WWF or WCW, do you still
That
keep
anybody knows of.
right? Do you still keep up with the Monday night shows?
Once in a while, yeah.
Yeah.
I just got home 10 days hunting up on the Canadian border, and I got 2 celebrity hunts coming up. I was down at NASCAR in Atlanta this past week. I got down in the pits there with my buddy, the Big Boss Man. So I've been covering a lot of ground and doing things that I haven't done it for a long time, you know.
Yeah, he was good friends with the Big Boss Man, and him and he was also a big NASCAR fan. Curt was he'd always want to be part of NASCAR. And if you listen to Rap is Crap, they kind of talk in there that, you know, Richard Petty's still the king. So there's a lot of you know, and a lot of people didn't know that he liked NASCAR. But yeah, him and Ray Traylor were both like NASCAR guys, and he talks about the, you know, going down to be at NASCAR with his friend. So I'm just gonna do a little bit more here. So take it away, Curt.
Okay. What happened?
All right,
when you
Pete,
originally
brother.
WWF to go to WCW?
No, nothing. I just they wanted me to go back into the wrestling scene, and Vince wanted me to wrestle for him, and he made an offer for me, and the WCW beat that to death. But you know, maybe I made a mistake, maybe I didn't. But at that time, I did the right thing.
Right.
He didn't make a mistake.
Myself.
Right. Is the bridge burnt there with Vince, or
No, not at all.
Okay.
I don't know. That'll never be burnt. I have most respect for Vince McMahon and his whole family.
Right.
All right, so I want to stop there because I want to bring back the. There were rumors that Curt had left because there was a stooging of him and he lost his insurance policy. However, as you literally just heard, and Eric Bischoff will go on to confirm this, that there was a deal made with Curt, and his dad was actually in the room. So Larry Hennig was there too. Oh, gosh. Since I got a new microphone, this does not want to sit still. Okay. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So there, this was the rumor that was going around that someone had stooged Curt to someone in the office had stooged him. He lost his insurance policy, so he left the WWF in a huff. Not true, and that's where I got my information. Is that interview right there where Curt says, "No, I went to Eric Bischoff, and the deal. I was going to come back to wrestling for Vince, but he went to meet Eric Bischoff with his father, and Eric Bischoff offered him more money than he could have dreamed of." So anyone who talks about those rumors, they only have heard internet rumors. They haven't heard it from Curt himself. That he never left the WWF in a huff. Again, he said that bridge with Vince is never burnt. So when everyone brings that up, I kind of want to get your guys' opinion if you guys had heard these rumors about Curt being stooged out of his insurance policy, and that's why he left the WWF. As you can clearly see, that is not true. Eric Bischoff would go on to confirm this, that it was Larry and Curt who was in the meeting with him, and it also Curt will also agree that Eric Bischoff just made him a better offer. I do want to say something before you guys give your opinions, that I do agree with him I don't agree with him that his WCW run did not do him any service. I think that it did him a great service, that he was great in WCW, even though they kind of didn't know what to do with him. And I think the whole Four Horsemen thing was bullshit. I think either you shit or get off the pot. You join the Four Horsemen at the beginning, and then you have a thing with them, and then you double cross them, or you don't do anything and you just kind of go with the storyline. But joining the Four Horsemen 2 weeks before they fucking were going to turn on you anyway doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any fucking sense. If you watch the interview with the Arn Anderson spot thing, if you watch that, watch Curt's face, because Curt's face does not match the response. And I just think that Curt was not all into it. He really didn't want to join the Four Horsemen because there was some bad blood between him and Ric Flair. And that I've actually told that story before, where Flair also stooged him in '92.
Fucking Flair.
Yeah, Kurt was going to come back earlier than he did, and Ric Flair said, "No, I'm not giving him a title shot." So, your opinions on the whole stooging rumors, and also what do you think was Kurt's shining moment in WCW? Why do you think he did well in WCW or didn't do well?
Well, I think for first of all, if we look at WCW, my resentment goes for the upper management and the people controlling the purse strings and like the suits. Okay, how a person traveled through that and survived to the best of their ability says a lot about their character. And so I would say he did the best he could in what I think was an irrational environment. I mean, WCW did have its moments where it could have been something great. It could have been. But to swim through it, survive it, and have a long career as you did in it as much as you can, I think you're A-okay in my book, and still able to land on your feet and then go back to the WWF. I think 10 out of 10 if you survive WCW, and plus you survived the point when they were doing the ECW or the WCW ECW invasion, you did good. You did the best you could with what you had. So I would say he was all right. And I think for his shining moment, I'm going to be biased here. His NWO moments.
You like his NWO moments. How about the rumors of him being stooged out of his insurance policy with the Lloyds of London? Him and Rick Rude and a lot of the Hawk and Animal. They had these Lloyds of London policies. And what do you think about him telling the truth about what happened with him when he went to WCW, or why he went to WCW? Have you heard the rumors? And what do you think?
I never did. This is the first time I hear this.
Yeah, could you elaborate? Because I mean I know what Lloyd's of London is.
Right.
Yeah.
What happened with that?
What had happened with Kurt specifically was so the rumor is that Kurt was thinking about coming back to the ring, and someone from upper management in WWF, so someone in the office, had stooged him or told on him to Lloyd's of London that he was going to go back to wrestling and still have his money for the insurance policy. That's why a lot of people believe he up and left. He literally, because sometimes he would not show up for WWF tapings. Sometimes he would. But these are just rumors. I mean, Kurt said himself that he literally was offered more money than he could ever dream of from Eric Bischoff. So that's the rumor, is that he left WWF in a huff and burnt the bridge with Vince because someone had stooged him to his policy to Lloyd's of London, and he lost his Lloyd's of London insurance.
Well, I wouldn't surprise me if WWF is going to do something underhanded to one of their talent. Of course they would.
But that's just the rumor. Again,
I know. It's just
really
a rumor.
Mention it, but
I know it's just a rumor. But I mean, it fits the profile. WWF has a long set history, allegedly. There you go. How's that sound? Allegedly, of screwing people over. Okay, and they're not the only company to do so, right?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me that they would do that, allegedly doing something like that.
Allegedly. So or Angel?
Yeah, that was my first time hearing this, but I can't. I'm not surprised. Something like this might have happened. My run with Curt Hennig in WCW, I always remember that Flair match with the head, the steel cage, and I remember
he slams the cage door on his head in back, Charlotte, North Carolina. Right. And if you know anything about Eric Bischoff, when he talked about Curt Hennig a couple years ago for his birthday, they had a Curt Hennig episode, and he says, "Oh well, we shouldn't have done it in Charlotte." Well, where else were you going to do it,
right,
Bischoff? It didn't make any sense to do it anywhere else. Don't apologize for doing correct storylines for things you did correctly. This was your correct thing to do because you wanted to get Kurt heat. You wanted to turn him heel and turn him to the NWO. This was the best way to get Curt Hennig heat. It was slamming the cage door on Flair's head, which Flair would go on to reveal that it was something from the 80s with Kerry Von Erich that they had wanted to recreate. Now, Flair said that in Kurt's Mr. Perfect, the life and times of Mr. Perfect.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's
Bischoff.
true, but again, that's from Ric Flair allegedly. That's what they
Yeah.
wanted to do.
The thing
Now,
with Bischoff is he's very corporate and
yes,
very like tied down. So I'm so sorry
right.
we did it in Charlotte and we didn't mean to do it, blah blah blah.
He would
But
go on to
me,
apologize for
yeah,
the parody that the NWO would do on the Four Horsemen. Again, freedom of speech. It was a joke. They were
Mhm.
I
just
don't.
poking
That was
fun, and they
hilarious.
would go on to right. It was hilarious,
It's very
and
similar
no one said
to
shit in the WWE when they did it with Vince McMahon. They did
yeah.
it a parody on the corporation.
It's
They
very
also did
similar
it on
to
the Nation of Domination with The Rock
yeah.
and
What?
It's very
Triple H
similar to
dressed up
what
as the Croc.
yeah
Y-
DX did
Yeah,
it to
yeah.
Nation Domination.
By the
But
Yeah.
way,
today it's
I
like,
just want to
oh
give a
well,
shout out to X Pac for being the most vocal against like he was the one who kept saying, guys, this is gonna come back to haunt us. This is a
on us.
bad idea. I
Well,
don't want
that's
to do
because he
it.
was Mark Henry and in blackface.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're all in blackface. Like, oh well,
Mhm.
Yeah, well, he was like, guys, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do. He's gone on the record numerous times saying like, I hate that.
Well-
I hated doing that.
Well, I probably would have done it, and then it's like, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. It's better to apologize than ask permission. That's the
Right.
old
And
saying.
well, Kevin Nash also will go on his podcast and say, I mean, it was Arn Anderson's it was his little
Mhm.
cooler that he gave to Kevin Nash for the parody.
Mm.
So they were all in on it, and I'm sure Kurt and them were in the back laughing it up.
Mhm.
But it just seemed like Flair was kind of butthurt over the whole thing, and so was Bischoff. And it was like, don't.
When is Flair never butthurt? Or when was he never butthurt?
Well,
That's a good
Flair-
question. Uh, so, Angel, what do you guys think about the rumor? And then what do you think was Kurt's biggest
The rumor-
stint in WCW?
That rumor, I don't know. I mean, it's like it seemed
This
like
is the first
Kurt-
time you're hearing of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I heard it before, kind of, but it's like, oh, his insurance. I know he had a Lloyd in London policy, but
Mhm.
I knew that it's like by that point it was like
Most of
wasn't
the
he
Minnesota guys did.
yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't he coming back to wrestling anyway? So it wasn't like he didn't care about it too much. It seemed like.
Well,
So and
the thing is, Conan talks about it that it was like kind of like a side hustle to Kurt. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get this Lord of London's, and I'm gonna go back to wrestling and that kind of thing, because they allowed Animal Hawk and Animal or Hawk from the Legion of Doom. They allowed him to be in tag team matches, but they would not allow him in singles competition, and that
Yeah,
was because of
Lloyd.
Lloyd of London, right?
Yeah, it depended on what the insurance.
It depended on what the
wanted-
policy said.
What?
And apparently, I mean, Kurt, his back was hurt legit.
Mhm.
The first time he came back, Jim Cornette says he thinks that Vince paid it off the first time, but he wouldn't pay it off the second time to come on. But again, they're just rumors, and Kurt even says,
Vin-
no, WCW, made me an offer.
Yeah, I know that Kurt had a terrible back in like what 92 when Brett beat him for the Intercontinental title.
91.
91.
Mhm.
Yeah. And he as soon as Brett put the sharpshooter on, he instantly submitted. It was like, yeah, his back was bad.
Because
So-
Brett admits during the
Yeah.
life and times of Curt Hennig,
Mhm.
or Mr. Perfect, he admitted, he said, yeah, his back, he was having back spasms. So he was
Yeah.
kind of a little bit in agony, but he
Yeah.
still gave the fans 100%.
Yeah, that was a great match, even though
Yeah.
his back was in horrible shape. As
Right.
soon as Brett cinched back, it's like he instantly like gave up and like and the bell was rung. But
Mhm.
yeah, I know his back was bad, but the late 90s, it's like I figured that I always heard, well, Kurt got an offer from Bischoff, that Mark from
Correct, yeah.
WCW, and it was
And
like,
it was way
yeah, I'm
more
gonna
than
take the
Kurt could
money.
ever even think of.
Yeah.
I think it was it was either $1 million or it's pretty close to.
Yeah, I mean,
It was
he
pretty
got that
close. It was
money
like
from Bischoff. and it's like-
900,000 a year. It was
Yeah,
pretty
it's
close
like-
to $1 million. It was
it's
pretty
like, yeah,
close to
I'm-
$1 million.
I would have taken the money. It's like, oh yeah, I got a bad back. It's like, shit,
And,
900,000
yeah.
and it was less days.
Yeah, less
because
days,
Bischoff
too.
was offering less days, and yeah, Kurt, his back was still bothering him, but he was one of those guys that just kind of would wrestle through the pain. He was
Yeah,
one of
most
those
guys
guys that
would.
he would
Yeah.
give the fans
Back-
everything, and
Back in
and
those days, yeah.
yeah,
He
and
would
if
work
you
through it.
compare him to like the modern day people, as soon as their little back is hurt, they're like, "Oh, I can't wrestle. Oh, my back hurts."
Hey,
And
hey,
Kurt's
Tony,
like,
give me millions.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Tony Khan, give me millions while I'm healing my back.
while I'm healing
slight
my
pain.
back, and Kurt would be like, "I wrestled through the pain, you
And then
idiots,
they
and I
go on
still gave
Twitter.
110%."
They go on Twitter and say, "Oh, my back. I give it all
Oh,
to
my
you."
back, and Kurt would laugh at him.
Yeah. The
So
thing,
real quick,
I'll
I
say
think,
this. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think Kurt,
Yeah.
WCW, I think he was just a victim, just like, I gotta say, like Macho Man, all these guys that went to WCW, they just play second
Right.
fiddle to,
Ooh, yeah.
the
Right,
Scott
and
Hall and all.
I don't like the fact that he if you watch in like July-ish of 1998, he does have at Bash of the Beach, I believe, or pretty close to, he is against Goldberg, and of course it's only like a minute match because Goldberg only wrestled for a minute. But if you guys remember that, he was trying to get a contract with Goldberg, and then he was hurt. He ended up going to the NWO Red and Black, and then he turned on Conan and ended up going back to NWO Hollywood. And there is an interview somewhere, if you can find it, where Eric Bischoff admits they didn't have a plan for Kurt. And they wanted to turn the NWO Red and Black baby faces, and Kurt didn't want to be a baby face. He wanted to stay a heel.
Bischoff didn't plan to anybody unless it was Hogan.
Right, unless it was
Well,
Hogan or maybe
yeah.
Sting, maybe.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen an interview with Bobby Heenan, he talks about Tony Schiavone was one of the worst because he would not help anybody. He wouldn't say which guy was
Tony-
going over. He kind of kept to himself. But he was also very jealous. He's a very jealous commentator and didn't want
Schiavone
anyone.
was the shits.
Yeah, he literally just didn't
Even-
want anybody knowing of anything.
Even today in AEW is like, oh, what a move! This is so great, guys, isn't it? Even though it sucks, but that's what he says when
Guys.
No. It's no. You if you want to get the crowd, you got to be like, oh my god, oh my god.
EC
They just did. They just do a Dark Side of the Ring on Sandman,
Did
they?
or was it a biography? Or they're going to. I don't know.
It was they're going to. It's Dark Side of the
They're
Ring.
going to. Yeah, it's Dark
Yeah,
Side of the
Sandman.
Ring on the
Yeah, because
Sandman.
I was watching
Last
something
week-
where
Last
the
week's episode
Sandman.
was Terry Gordy.
We forgot that Sandman was in WCW as Puck.
Yeah, that's right. He was.
Yes, he was.
Some weird. Oh my god.
He was.
It was the Sandman without naming him, so it's Puck, right? That's their
With a
gimmick.
So that was his
Hawkeye
first like
on his
gimmick.
head.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, they did that to certain wrestlers. You know, they gave them really shitty gimmicks, and then because if you remember, Stone Cold came in as the Ringmaster,
The Ringmaster, but
Oh.
Ted
and he
DiBiase is
didn't
his
like
manager.
it, and
Yep,
it was
and
the
Ted
shit.
DiBiase was his manager.
And then he
DiBiase
did
was
the
his
parody.
manager. He had the $1 million belt. And he didn't like it, so he said, "I'm going to put on my boots." And his ex-wife, was English, and she said, "Well, drink your tea before it becomes Stone Cold."
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold
Mhm.
Steve Austin.
Austin.
I'll never forget his parody of he did Eric Bischoff on ECW, where the big boys play with each other.
Right.
Welcome to ECW.
I love that.
Welcome, where the big boys
Welcome.
play with each other.
The big boys play with each other.
I think when Steve came as the Ringmaster, because I did watch ECW before, but because in where I'm at in New York, ECW came in like I think Sundays at 2:00 in the morning or some weird time.
Here
So,
in New Jersey, it was Wednesdays at 3:00 in the morning. I would watch it, but it was
And then when
Three
he-
o'clock in the morning, shit.
yeah.
ECW came on Thursday evening here in Chicago, and I remember that because it would be after SmackDown or something like that.
Okay.
Well, you lucky.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Right.
late for us, like two in the morning.
Now we had it easy here in Chicago for a while. And then of course then ECW stopped airing. Same thing for WCW, and then same thing for eventually because SmackDown's now only on It's on
on
streaming
Fox.
or
It's on Fox now.
Yeah. Oh God.
Mhm.
Oh, it is. It's on Fox.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
local Fox.
Like
yeah,
local
local
Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa! I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Next year it's going to USA, but it's going back to cable. But
Yeah.
and Raw is going to Netflix. But
What
it's a
did
whole
you
nother
miss,
drama.
kid?
All right, so we're gonna go a little bit more here, just a little bit.
Okay.
Listen to a little bit more of this interview.
All right.
We're not gonna listen to the whole thing, obviously, but I just wanted to let you hear, from Kurt's own mouth, kind of what he thought of everything. And like I said, this was in 2002, or no, 2000. It was after his little stint with Sean Stasiak, where Sean Stasiak was trying to be the perfect one. And it was sort of like a passing of the torch that Kurt was going to do for him. So here we go.
Right, that was
I'm up there with a handshake. Yeah.
right. Well, my other question to you, I guess what you just answered is if you regretted making the move at that time.
No, not at the time. No, right now, maybe if I look at the big picture, maybe where would I have been? Maybe in a wheelchair, or maybe I'm coming back. It's a two-headed coin, So I'm just.
He would not have been in a wheelchair.
I've always lived my life everywhere, So.
Right.
Gun for hire.
Yeah. At the time, when you were in the WWF, you had done a deal where you started working on an angle with Steve Austin, and the rumor anyway was that you were going to wind up wrestling him at Survivor Series if Brett didn't return. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, well, there's a little truth to it, and I don't know much to dwell on that, but yeah, I think it's in there. I mean, the reaction from when I was out the table with Vince, when Austin was in the ring, we had words back and
Jim
forth,
Ross.
and I know it was unbelievable. So I could just see Vince, getting his fingers into something here, because the character Mr. Perfect and the Austin character, that would have been a clash, and it still might be. Who knows?
Right.
So again, this is 2000. Yeah. Do you guys remember?
That.
Yeah, there was so I don't have it up here, but I can show it sometime, or we can watch along to it. There is a little bit of when Austin was going to face Savio Vega at one of the pay-per-views, and Kurt was sitting at ringside because he was doing the commentating with Jim Ross at the time.
Yeah.
And there's a back and forth between him and Steve Austin, and the fans were like, whoa. Because they were like in awe of this, like Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Mr. Perfect.
I'm sure.
And I just love the one. I'm sorry, Angel. Hang on 1 second.
No, that's fine.
I just love the one where he goes, "Don't tell me you can kick my ass, Austin, unless you kicked my ass." I love that.
Yeah.
We should seriously do this again, where like literally I show this to you, because the whole thing is awesome, and you can see the fans reacting to it, and it just seemed like afterwards Kurt just kind of left. But your reactions to what we just heard?
Yeah, I believe that, because Brett came back in 96, yes, Survivor Series 96. And
this would have been right. Yeah.
And Brett at the time was doing either movies or television series, and they weren't sure.
He was
whether
doing
to
a
be back or
television
not.
series. I think it was the Lonesome Dove stuff.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, I remember that. So watching it because I like Brett.
I remember
so I
flipping on the channel and seeing Bret Hart on as a Western guy. And what's funny is if you read Bret's book, he actually talks about where he when he first was trying to look for a gimmick, they wanted him to do a cowboy gimmick. He said,
Bret
"I
Hart.
don't want to do it." Yeah, he don't want to do a cowboy gimmick. He wanted to be he wanted to be the hitman.
Yeah, there's a Canadian. There's some Canadian cowboys,
a Canadian cowboy wouldn't work.
Canadian cowboy.
So when you see him in Lonesome Dove, which I do have that TV series downloaded, and when you see him in Lonesome Dove, it's kind of like, well, Brett, why didn't you just stick with the cowboy gimmick? Because he's great in that. He's really great in that series.
So Vince wasn't sure whether Brett was coming back. So having Mr. Perfect as a backup against Steve Austin would have been a great match. Would have been very similar.
Would have been a great match. And like I said, there. Yeah, so there was like I said, they do end up. Sorry, I thought a pillow fell down. They do actually have they have some words at the commentating table, because Mr. Perfect was commentating. And like I said, he makes the statement, well, don't say you can kick my ass, Austin, unless you kicked it.
Yeah, I remember that because as a teenager, I thought to myself, "That'd be a great match." And this is
That would be a
before
great match.
Austin.
Yep.
This is before Owen Hart broke Steve Austin's neck, so he was
Yep.
working that great
This was
style still.
96. It would have been
Yeah,
December-ish. I think that's
yeah.
what the timeline says. Yeah, it
Because
would have been
November
December-ish.
'96 would have been Bret Hart's return against Steve Austin in Survivor Series. It's
Correct.
November '96,
So when he
so it
says
would have
Vince
run
is
that
probably in
time.
the back going,
Yeah, pal.
yeah, but there was, then there was the thing
Mhm,
with Eric Bischoff and
mhm,
Kurt had already agreed to go to WCW. So that's kind of what put a stint on it. Now this is
mhm.
2000 and everyone knows he does come back in 2002
True.
and does
Mhm.
have one
What
small match with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And I remember when he came back in 2002, I was like, "Holy shit, Kurt seems still in great shape."
He was
It
in
was
great shape.
in early
Hmm
40s. He looked better than most of the guys on the roster by that point. And it's
Yeah,
like,
he would have been in 2002. He
yeah, he
would have been 40, almost,
40.
44. He would have been 44.
Yeah,
In
because
2002?
I was in high
Yes.
school. I was a
Yeah. I was in
junior.
high school. I was
Yeah,
16 years old. Or, yeah, I
I was
just
like,
turned 16 in
yeah, I was like, holy
2002.
crap,
Yeah, and I'm
Kurt.
Uh,
yeah,
Kurt
wow.
passed in 2003. He
Hmm,
self deleted in February 9th, 2003.
Ay,
And
ay,
I
ay.
was almost 17 years old.
and
So,
and
yeah, I was 16.
and it's unfortunate, I say, because imagine if Kurt Hennig, Bret Hart, and a few other guys would have survived into 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think
Right.
wrestling would be so much better today because those guys would have
So
taught
much
these
better.
younger guys.
I
You
could
know
see
what?
Yeah,
Kurt opening a school and,
yeah,
teaching the newer talent.
yeah, that would have
Something that
been
I could definitely see Kurt doing.
the wrestling business would be so much better today
Yeah.
if he would have just,
I
yeah,
could
but
I could see that, but there would be some problems because then again, too, remember this is when finally, WWE was having its claws into everything, and then you know how these corporate suits act. They're gonna start interfering in the schools and how things are done, and even if they were around a little bit longer, sooner or later, what we see today. It might have been kicking the can down the road, but it was going to seep in because this is how these corporate jagoffs act.
yeah,
They want
But
everything to be so
yeah,
appeasing to the masses. And
yeah,
I
and
get
and
that. But Dustin Rhodes has a school where
yeah,
he teaches
yeah.
up and coming talent. And I think that Dustin does a good job because he is second generation.
Hmm.
Kurt could also have, his second generation stuff. And then, no offense, but if Kurt was still alive, I would so go for him. I would be the new Mrs.
he
Perfect.
He's 60. He would have been in his mid 60s. He probably be in better
Right.
shape than most wrestlers are today.
yeah,
He
probably,
was, if you've seen
yeah.
pictures of him, when they
In his
talk
mid
about
60s. Yeah.
right, so he would be 66 on Thursday.
Yeah.
If you've seen him during that, he was talking about the Australia pay-per-view that he did with Dennis Rodman. If you've seen
Uh-huh.
pictures of him, and there's Buff Bagwell was also into that too. He looks, oh my God, like $1,000,000. I kid you
Yeah.
not. I do have a picture of him from that
He's
pay-per-view from Australia, and he looks awesome. He looks
re-
so jacked, and he looks like he could literally take on the world.
And even in
And
his
that was at
Rumble
44.
match in
That was
2002.
right. He would have been 45 that year
wrestlers
if
are.
he had not self-deleted.
I hate bitching about today's wrestling, but the guys today are so small.
Right.
I'm 5'10", 200 pounds. I'm bigger than most of
He
these
was
guys these days.
6'3", and he would have been about
Yo,
when he passed, he was about 290.
Well, let
Yeah,
me tell
How
you
I'm
something.
jacked he
5'10",
was.
200. I'm bigger than most of these guys these
No, the
days.
funny thing is that when Steve Austin did the Ringmaster thing and the Ringmaster came out, because
Mhm.
remember we were so
Mhm.
used to in WWF, so the jacked up wrestlers, and when you saw
Right.
Yeah.
Stone Cold, you were like, look at this guy, he just came from WCW, because in WCW you had
The
kind of like
Hollywood
the small, you know
Blondes.
what
I
I mean,
remember them
right? You had some
Hollywood
Yeah.
other
Blondes.
And
Yeah.
wrestlers,
the Brian Pillman thing.
Yeah,
right,
Brian
right.
Pillman.
So I think Kurt, maybe he would have probably snuck in a little small wrestling promotion. You know how the Booker T's got his own thing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
locally
So you
and all
think that
that.
maybe Kurt could have taken on WWE, could have been something, a solution maybe instead of AEW, maybe something he could have kind of flown in under the radar and kind of been
Sure.
like, AEW.
Well,
but it
it
would
could
have
have
been better AEW. It would have been
right.
better.
Or
Develop
the opposite.
like OVW type of deal back then in the early
Okay.
2000s. You know,
Cornette would
Which
have
Jim
definitely
Cornette
used
had.
Kurt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Cornette
Like
loved
he
Kurt
could give the
Hennig.
reins to Kurt and be like,
Yeah.
I want you to be the head of my talent, teach my talent.
Mhm.
I could definitely see Jim Cornette and Kurt
Yeah.
doing that
Yeah.
because Jim Cornette has a lot of respect for Kurt because
Mhm.
he could bat the gum. He knew how the business worked. Kurt was a big ribber, but I mean, who doesn't love his ribs? I mean, come on, guys. The man was a fucking genius when it came to
Kurt
freaking
Hennig.
ribs.
I would have loved to seen Kurt Hennig against the AJ Styles and the Kurt Angles of the world and
And
Samoa Joes
I would have
and
loved to see him
it's
tag with his son.
yeah, he would have been
Tag
alive for
with
that.
Joe.
He should have been alive for that. I meant to say, yeah,
Yeah, I would love to because he tagged with his father.
yeah.
So I could see him tagging with Joe.
Having a
Definitely,
run in the WWE or WWF, WWE, whatever, and when his son was there and tagging with him,
Yep.
I think Vince would have put the tag team titles on them, just like it did with Cody and Dustin.
I could see that. I could
Because
definitely
Cody
see
and
that.
Dustin were tag team champions at one point,
And they
in
were
that time.
brothers.
Yeah.
And then I think that if anything, I think that Joe with a little more confidence could have stuck up for himself with Vince and then said, because Vince kind of wants you to stick up for yourself. But again,
Yeah.
that's not a good reason to not promote Joe because he was
He
just like
can't-
his dad.
He
Mhm.
can't like you had this a balance.
Yeah.
You went too far, you were fucked. But if you didn't go
Yeah.
far enough with Vince, then you were fucked either way.
Then you were
so,
fucked
Mhm.
anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So
kind
if-
of a shame because
Mm.
Joe was third generation and he
Mhm.
knew the business from Kurt. Kurt showed him the ropes when he was, a kid. And, he followed the business. I don't know. I don't think Hank is in the business, but I definitely know that Amy did. She did indie circuits, I think. So Amy and Joe were both in it, and the other two just never got into it, which
Do-
is
do you-
fine.
Do you
Yeah,
think
I
that?
mean-
Do you think that because of maybe the presence of Vince McMahon and then finally being in that position, like all eyes were on you to make sure everything would be perfect, so you didn't screw
He-
anything up? Because obviously there's things that your father could have done,
He
but you got to
could have been-
wonder what. But you got to wonder if
Mhm.
if I do it, am I pushing it, and then do I mess up? Because there should be. He's probably thinking about multiple scenarios in his head of what should I do and what shouldn't I do, and
He
that-
could have been
yeah.
intimidated by Vince, but at the
Yeah,
same
I
time,
think it
it's
had a
Vince.
lot to do with the fact that, Kurt may have or may not have confided in him what Vince was like. Again,
That's another thing. Yeah.
yeah, you don't really hear a lot of
Mm,
interviews
Junior-
with Joe. And I did watch the NWO documentary that they did. And the one thing Joe said, his dad would come home from, wrestling and would make him watch NWO stuff. Like when Kurt went into the NWO
Mhm.
the next night on Nitro, they kind of had like a party for Kurt because he came into the NWO and he would make him watch those clips over and over again. And actually, which is kind of crazy, Kurt gets hit in the head with a bottle. Or no, like ice, like
Yeah,
if
it was
someone throws a cup
something.
of ice,
Yeah,
that's
it's a-
heat, baby. That's
Mhm.
heat. Because he slammed the cage door in Charlotte,
On
North
Flair.
Carolina. Next, he gets hit in the head with a cup of ice, and it was probably a beer or something. But if you look, Kurt turns to Bischoff and just kind of gives him that little nod and that little smile because he knew he got
Mhm.
heat. He
Yeah.
knew that the Charlotte people hated him for what he did to Flair.
It's very similar to Scott Hall. When Scott Hall hit in the head with a
Mhm.
beer, he just does this. Like he's like, he got hit in the head with a beer. He just does
Kurt got
this.
hit several times with
Yeah.
drinks, and the one time it really pissed him off because he goes like this, and he's just like, "Ugh," like because if you ever heard an interview with Eric Bischoff, they never really kind of stopped that, but they never
No, they
encouraged it
can't.
either.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay, we're not going to stop the fans, but
I
at the same
remember
time,
that.
if you
Well,
want
we're
to
not going to
throw,
tell them they have to do
Yeah,
it, but
yeah,
Right.
Nash tells a story where they started throwing golf balls and they started throwing like really big ice balls. Like they would put the ice together and throw it
Uh-huh.
at the wrestlers eventually. And there was a lawsuit between Kevin Nash and one of the fans because the fan had hit him in the head with a brick, or
Yeah,
tried
that
to
was
hit
a
him in the
spring
head with a
break.
brick.
That's
Yeah.
like a spring break thing, like 98
Yeah.
or 99.
Right.
Nash started chasing him. He grabbed him. Turns out, oh, it's a kid. Like he just stopped himself and arrested him, and then the kid sued him later.
Yeah, tried to sue him later, even
Yeah.
though the kid was trying to hit him
Yeah.
with the object because he was, I don't know if he was drunk and pissed off or something, but yeah, these guys had to go through a lot. I know there's a story from Jesse Ventura that they had to actually put heels into an ambulance because no one would ever think that there's heels in the ambulance.
Yeah,
They think there's sick people or hurt people in the ambulance.
yeah,
So they had
I've
to
heard
hide
other
in the
heels did
ambulance.
that.
Yeah,
Other heels
and
that
during the
do that.
territories.
Yeah,
That
had
was
to
during
join
the
ambulances.
territories. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so we're just gonna listen to this a little bit longer, and then we'll kind of get your thoughts on it, and then we're just gonna wrap it up because we
All right.
do have to go. I know Kit probably has to go, so we'll
Okay.
go a little bit more.
All good.
Sounds good.
Anyway, when you did the deal where you guys confronted each other at the announce table, you had a lot of heat and had a real good chemistry going.
Yeah, and Austin is man. I'll tell you what, that guy came in there and he was bound and determined, and he's a man of his word. And he did, he got an opportunity, he took it. I got to take my hat off to him.
Right. Another guy you worked with right in your final days in the WWF was Triple H. Are you surprised? Yeah, are you surprised at successful he became?
No, because I'm not surprised at all because he's a student of the game, and I mean. I guess it's an honor to me that he used to take my tapes and watch them, and study them. I mean, not just watch them, but study them. And that was the first time anybody had ever come to me in the business and said, "Hey, I'm watching Mr. Perfect tapes." Proud,
Yeah.
and pounded me a little bit. So, but now I find out a couple years later that all the Scott Halls and all the Diamond Dallas Pages and all these guys, Shawn Michaels, are all. There's a little bit of ingredients of Curt Hennig in all of them, and that makes me feel pretty good that I've left that much of a mark on impression on their brains.
Definitely. It seemed at the time when you hit really big in the WWF with the Mr. Perfect character, it was in a land of big giants and big muscle men, but you put an emphasis back on the athleticism in the game.
Yeah, and I think I can still do that. I think it's going around again like that. I think that the guys that were all bulked up and had all the muscle mass, I was taught a long time ago in this business, learn the business first, then you work out. You work out during it, but it takes a while to learn this business, you know. And these guys that jump in right from the gym all with their bodies all maxed out already, they only got one direction to go, and that's down with the body.
Sure.
I feel as good as I've ever felt right now. I'm going to the University of Minnesota with this Brock Lesnar, who Vince McMahon has signed. He works in Louisville in developmental.
Right.
I'm going to work.
Oh,
right
no.
now. This guy's out. He might be the next Bull of the Woods, this kid.
Yeah, how do you think he's going to do? I was going to ask you about him.
I think he's going to do great. I mean, we trained him here at Brad Ryan School.
Kurt was right.
And, he's got a great attitude. He's a stud. And
Sort of,
fast and,
Brock
he's
became
had popularity here in Minnesota. I mean, he's a first national champion.
Go ahead.
Well, Brock became a superstar, so he was right about him being doing great.
Yes, but there's a lot of people that also think that Kurt trained Brock Lesnar, and that's not true. He only worked out with him a couple of times. No, yeah. Really, the people who trained him were more like, Brad Reagan's and, the Minnesota people. But I mean,
Jim
and he
Cornette
did go to
was
work out
involved.
with him a couple of times. Yeah. In fact, he was on the phone and he kind of gets distracted because Brock pulls in the parking lot. And he'll go on to say, "Oh, wait, hang on. I just saw Brock Lesnar pull in. What was the question again?" So there's a lot of, I think a lot of people just assume that Kurt trained Brock, and Brock would go on to be, yes, he's a superstar, but as Jim Cornette would say, he didn't really like the business. And there's a quote that Brock likes to talk about with Kurt, and it was taken out of context. So Brock would always hear, "Don't be a lifer." And the reason why Kurt said that is because Brock would always complain, and I don't really want to travel, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. And it was probably like Kurt's way of saying, well, then you don't want to be a lifer in the wrestling business.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was taken.
so that's the context of it. But
It was
the
taken out of
people,
context by
it was
Brock.
taken
Yeah,
way out
people.
of context, and they
Mhm.
think, well, Kurt said that because Kurt was a lifer and he didn't want Brock to make the same mistakes. No,
No, Kurt.
he said it because Brock was complaining. His girlfriend was pregnant and he wanted to be with her, and they ended up having twins, and then he
That-
left her for Rena and
Sable.
the whole
Sable and all
Sable.
that stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
And that really, if you actually know the story from Mark Marrow, and he will tell it, Mark Marrow was very much in love with Rena, and it was a big shock that he actually found out by listening to Rena's voicemails. Another wrestler had actually commented on them being together, her and Brock Lesnar. So that's how he kind of found out, and it was kind of a sleazy way of doing it.
Yeah.
So I just want to do a little bit more here.
Okay.
I was kind of hoping he would get to
50 years the heavyweight, and so it's a big deal here in Minnesota, and he's got recognition around here, but he has the right frame of mind and the mindset to
he might have
to be a
back
major
then,
star
yes.
and a force in the WWF, no doubt.
Right, absolutely. Jumping ahead to your WCW days, what do you attribute the rise and the fall of the NWO to? The gimmick, the character.
Just people not having enough experience how to control characters in the business.
Right.
I mean, I think maybe they were just thinking that us guys just go out and wrestle and become, all of a sudden we're a star or something. But that takes time and preparation and developing that character, and I don't think they took the time to do that. Goldberg, though, has developed from that company.
Right.
But maybe he's the only one.
A little bit.
Well, yeah, Goldberg had that undefeated streak.
I mean, he's the one that.
Yeah, I mean, but he was just trying to say, well, it seems like the only person to come out who was a superstar at the time. I think that's a little out of context if you take it that way.
Yeah.
He was just trying to say that Goldberg was like kind of the only superstar to rise out of the WCW fold.
The power plant and
the power plant.
That they didn't even train him to wrestle. So, okay, here's some moves and go out there, buddy.
Right. And Kurt would be the first to tell you that Goldberg was Goldberg, but it seemed just like he was like the only one to kind of rise out of that and become something in WWF, something that Vince McMahon kind of toyed with a little bit, but he still kind of made Goldberg a household name in the WWF, and he came out of that WCW fixture.
I still hated Goldberg by 2002.
Oh, I still hate Goldberg too.
He ended his career.
That dude.
And I was happy when Triple H beat him up.
Kurt doesn't say in this interview, but he has said before he actually did get hurt from Goldberg. So Bret Hart was not the only one to feel the effects.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't surprise me.
Developed Macho Man, the Hogans, and everything, and they came in, they rode those coattails, but sooner or later they didn't know what to do with them. So, which I see that company turning around here pretty quick too.
Do you really?
You know me.
They're talking. Well, they were talking about selling a couple weeks ago, up until the last week or so. It seems that deal squashed.
I've been up hunting and everything. I've been trying not to follow it because I got enough headache. I've been hitting the head too many times already.
Yeah, I guess 15 years you need a break.
Yeah. I've had a break. For the last 3 years, I've had a break.
And he really wanted to get back into wrestling.
Yeah, I bet. Now,
remember, this is 2000, so.
University of Minnesota, I'm wanting to go.
Right.
Yeah, he really wanted to get back.
Now, your the last year or so in WCW, it must have been pretty wild because you had Vince Russo coming in, then you had Eric Bischoff back, then you had Vince Russo again. Compare the two of them, Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff.
Well, I just
so
turned
sucks.
the channel in my brain. One guy gave me a deal, and the other guy knows what I can do.
Right.
So, I don't know where to go with that. It's a tug of war, So I just I flipped the channel in my brain. I just went and see my buddies and hung out and went hunting and fishing, did what I like to do, golf, and
Right.
I'll settle, and if there's room after that, which I know there is. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. How did
Oh man, this hurts. This hurts a little, man.
Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. How did they change from their WWF days when you went to work with them in WCW?
Well, Scott Hall was with me in he's 87, I think 6'7", somewhere in there.
86.
So he got the Hennigism in him, I don't know what happened there. I don't know. I stay in contact with them, but not like I used to. So I
Can
don't
you get
know
that by
what really
contact?
happened. They had it going, and I don't know who the booker was. You could ask me who my boss was. I couldn't have told you.
You're not the first person that told me that.
Like in my whole life, I've never worked really independently. I've
Right.
always worked for Vern Gagne or Don Owens out in Portland. I worked, but and then finally I went to WCW. But otherwise I worked for Vince's dad and Vince and Vern.
Right.
And I've never had to do this what is it called, independent stuff.
Sure.
I don't really care to
Indie
do
stuff.
that much. Right. But now this pay-per-view on December 1st,
So this would probably when he was in between golfing and stuff, he was also doing an indie circuit, as we figured out in 2001, because he was itching to get back into wrestling. So what kind of and I'm actually gonna end that because we do have to go here, but so I kind of want like your thoughts and your feelings, how you when you heard him talking about oh well, he didn't know who his boss was. How did you feel about the whole Vince Russo thing? I have my thoughts, but I'd like to hear from you guys what you guys thought of the Vince Russo and sort of the end of WCW, where he kind of said, well, we're going to push all the old guys out and we're going to make way for new guys. Well, where does that leave Curt? I mean, he gave you everything.
It would have
He
been
did
nice.
everything for WCW.
Well,
And then, he made himself the champion, which was a slap in the face to every other champion that had the belt.
The
And
gold
then
belt, the gold belt. That was the gold belt. Let's be very clear. That was the belt.
And they gave the belt to Arquette, like, oh, here you
they gave the belt to David Arquette and
like,
basically made a mockery. And I mean, I just want to get your feelings on that, but right before we wrap up.
Okay, so here I'm gonna keep my feelings just brief because I'm pretty sure all of you would pretty much agree with me on this one. The dying days of WCW is a huge embarrassment and slap in the face to the wrestling community. When you constantly change hands of the big gold belt, and this is big. This is a little bit bigger than Curt. I mean, obviously today, when this video comes out, it's for his birthday. But I mean, when you have the gold belt being handed over so many times, it's like, first of all, God damn it, is there any kind of real consistency here? Are you gonna have a real champion, or are you just changing, or are you just giving the belt out now and you're ruining its value? As for Curt and his days at WCW. I think he, like I said before, he did the best he could in an environment that was completely out of his control, and no amount of rational decision making could have prevented any of the the shitstorm, from falling out. So,
completely agree.
So frankly, what more could he have done that probably he could not have done at all? Period. So, all in all, I just wanted to say, though, since this is his birthday, or obviously we are filming this on his birthday, or it's going to come out on his birthday. R.I.P. brother. I think I don't know if I would have had the patience to deal with a fraction of what you had to deal with in the wrestling community, because it's one thing to put your body on the line, it's the other thing to deal with the politics.
Well, and I think he was trying to be nice about the whole Vince Russo thing. The thing with Vince Russo is,
I'm
Russo
surprised how nice he
business.
was.
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
People are not always like Jim Cornette, where I'm gonna piss and shit on his grave. But I think Curt, and this shows you the awesomeness of Curt Hennig, that he didn't really like to talk bad about people. He may have ribbed you for whatever reason, but it was because either he didn't like you, or you didn't pay your dues and he was just relieving stress, or he liked to pull a rib on you. That I've never heard any one wrestler, or anyone really in the wrestling business, say one mean or curse thing about Curt. And this goes to show you how good of a man he was, that he didn't really like to, he would tell you like it is, but he would try to, make sure everyone came out looking like a rose in the end. So yeah, he wasn't very close to Russo, and Russo screwed him big time. He wanted a title shot, but Russo said no, and they gave it to Jeff Jarrett, who was the chosen one.
He's an idiot.
Yeah. So Russo really didn't respect the business. He didn't respect Curt either, and that kind of showed in the dying days of WCW. and why they sort of went out of business. Because when you give a belt to a heavyweight championship belt to an actor who has never wrestled a fucking day in his life, you literally have skewed past anything of respect
That
for
was
the
offensive.
wrestlers who you had around you.
I was done with WCW and put the belt on Arquette. Even Russo, even putting the belt on himself, I'm like, yeah, that's ridiculous. And that
Because
big
he's
gold
always
belt
wanted to
means
be a fucking
nothing.
wrestler,
Yeah,
and now he
that
got
was
and he never fucking wrestled for it. He just put himself in the with the title, and I was like, you know what, Russo, fuck you. I'm kind of glad Curt didn't have the belt, because you would have been a slap in his face. You would have literally just had gone to everyone else who had that belt and just slapped him in the fucking face when you gave it to yourself. Well, fuck
and then
you
that's
then.
my thing with Curt. I mean, a lot of people don't like towards the dying days. They always talking about NWO and all this, but these are the stories with Curt that people don't talk about. That it's like, okay, like it's more than just NWO or whatever Vince Russo. It's this situation with, and that's my thing. That's my take with Curt WCW. It's like it was a ship without a captain basically, and we're just gonna get. Basically, it was like the Titanic, if you will. It was just going down.
Right. And Curt knew that, and I think he could see the writing on the wall, which is why in 2001 I was so glad I just stumbled upon that video that I sent to you, Angel, and you, Kit. I just totally stumbled accidentally upon it, thinking, "Wait, what the heck is this?" And apparently, he had gone to an indie circuit and became the heavyweight champion of the indie circuit. So that's why I kind of think he sort of like leans into that. Well, I couldn't tell you who my boss is because I'm not used to doing the independent circuits. And it kind of, he's kind of like, well, it's nice being independent and doing this pay-per-view. And that's why he did the one with Dennis Rodman in Australia. And I had no idea that he was on an indie circuit whatsoever. So I was very fortunate, and I did download that off of YouTube because I don't know how long it's going to be on that channel. And it could be for copyright reasons. It may not, because it's an indie circuit.
Download it while you still can.
Yeah,
I did. Yes, I did. And he looked so good in that match. It was against Chris Harris, who I think Chris Harris was in a I believe it is Chris Harris that is in a country music video called I Can't Lie to Me. And it's about a wrestler who is trying to get over his ex. So like there's a woman involved. And it's basically about he breaks up with his girlfriend and he's still in love with his girlfriend, but I think that's who was in the country music video Can't Lie to Me from David. Oh, what the heck is his name? Dave something or other. Sorry, you'll have to look it up. Just look up Can't Lie to Me. I think it's Chris Harris, the person who Curt fights in that match. So because he looks familiar, he looks awful familiar. There's a girl that comes out there and I'm like, what the hell, the girl, what does the girl have to do with anything? She's obviously not out there for Curt. So it is a fascinating interview. I do encourage you to check it out if you want to hear the whole interview with him. Like I said, I do have his comments coming up on episode 27 of my podcast, which is the match between him and Bret Hart. And he loved Bret Hart. I mean, he talks about Bret with such affection, and Bret, same thing. He's like, Bret is like, if I could wrestle anyone tomorrow, it would definitely be Curt Hennig. So they had all kinds of respect for each other, and they were friends. I do have a picture of them hanging out in a bar together. I want to say it looks like early 96 maybe when this picture was taken, maybe 95, 96 when Curt was commentating. So I think that all in all, I want to get your thoughts to wrap up what you think about the career and the man, Curt Hennig. Okay, let's start with you.
The career of the man. I mean, obviously, you're not going to get a legend like him ever come back again. But this goes for all the WWE. But also, it's very sad too about his passing, and that is through self-deletion. I think what we do need to make clear is that it is something that, people need to keep an eye out, because the warning signs, some can be visible and sometimes they can be hidden. And sometimes even the most upbeat of us, the most cheerful, the most warm, can have issues. And if you know someone that is suffering, please, there are places in which you can get help. And if you're someone going through that, there are people who will listen. And I think that's the one thing Curt would say, like, hey, look, just get help while you can, because life is short, life is precious, and we all have a huge impact in it. Our lives do matter. All of our lives do matter. And I think he made his impact in the world of wrestling.
Yes.
We may never see somebody like him again, but his contribution to wrestling made it into the titan industry that it is. It's an industry that
Right.
has changed from its roots, but who's to say that people cannot be inspired by the older generations to make wrestling into what we once knew and loved?
And I just want to
I
say,
hope that's a good note.
no, it's great.
Yeah.
No, that was great. And I just want to say, I know I'm going to be as discreet as I can, but a notable source has told me the reason he was having personal problems, marital problems, and was afraid that his kids would be taken from him. And he was in a dark place. And like I said, the source knows him very well. So I want to cry every time I think about it. So I will try not to cry when you guys talk. But he was larger than life, and I think even he would be like, you know what, I made a big mistake. I should have just, taken the good with the bad. And if I would have been there for him, or if you ever see if anyone does catch the Life and Times of Mr. Perfect, and you do get to see Wade Boggs also blames himself for Curt's passing and self-deletion, because he did it in Florida. He was in Florida for a show with Jimmy Hart. He was doing like independent wrestling at the time. It was kind of like a carnival wrestling. So they said that Curt was in Tampa, Florida for that exact reason. And when he self-deleted. So Angel, let's go to you.
Mr. Perfect is definitely one of the all-time greats, and I should have appreciated him more when he was alive. But like I said in the beginning, I didn't, because he wasn't the flashy gimmick that I liked as a kid growing up. But yeah, when it comes to self-deletion, I'll say this real quick, and then we'll move on. I'm bipolar, so I had plenty of thoughts of self deletion throughout, especially the last couple of years. Especially, I was in a
Mhm.
dark place like in 2022. I mean, it was my medication was wrong, and I had to get my medication right, and had all personal problems, and I didn't really have much direction. And I thought to myself, "Nah, just gonna." And the only reason why I didn't self delete was because I was really, I was like, "Well, what happens if my family finds me?" And
Yeah.
I'm in a bad shape. So that's why the only reason why I'm here is because of thinking about my family, my mother and family members and stuff. If not, if I didn't care about them, I wouldn't be here. I would not be here talking to you right now. I would be gone.
Right. Well,
So
and I think the thing is, his kids, he loved his kids more than his own life, I'm
yeah.
sure.
hmm
And I think he was thinking of his kids, but he was thinking more, oh, what happens if I can't see them, if I can't be with them? And I
Yeah.
think he just got to the point where there was so much marital problems that he just saw no hope in it. And, there was some abuse as well. So, when you're
Eh,
dealing with that, there's only so much that can numb that pain. And
Yes.
I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for Curt. Um, just that, when you're dealing with abuse, I know because I've also dealt with abuse in my life. You'll do anything to, let yourself forget, because you want to forget.
Yeah.
You just want to forget that you're in that situation. And mine was, my outlet was wrestling.
Yeah.
It wasn't, drugs and alcohol.
And I'm
Well,
with
I
you. And
did.
my take is I guess my take would be So I got my podcast. It's called Deconstructing Topics. I talk about everything: philosophy, politics, whatever's in between. One of the things I talk about is like self motivation and help others. And I do got one episode that is called like "There's a dark cloud that's hanging over my head," which a lot of people does have. But unfortunately, people like Curt, even myself, even like Angel, you might see us and you always smiling, always doing something, and people might not see the darker side or that dark side.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I did my podcast because unfortunately, like after when Trump won 2016, especially a lot of black Latino people, we was consumed into this thing. And I say, hold up, unplug yourself. Because at the end of the day, you become a consumer and the elite people make money out of your misery. Unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
One of the things where Curt, it's like, I hate to be like, oh, what other wrestling death that you hate the most? Curt was one of those things because he was a great wrestler. He was a great at everything, but we just never knew what was that other side that got into that situation. So.
And there was a recent commercial I saw, and it's two guys they're at a football game, like like not go NFL, but like soccer, right? And one guy looks clearly like distressed. He's kind of just look, and everyone's cheering and dancing, and cheering the game. His friends right there holding next to him. And the commercial ends where the guy who looked all distressed, sits next to an empty seat where his friend was all cheerful and says like, "Hey, suicide, self deletion is real, and you sometimes the warning signs are hidden." So I'm very sorry that he had to go like that, and I think he we just got to remember that we have to communicate with one another, especially in this day and age where we got our cell phones in front of us and we're isolated, like we're more connected than ever.
This was like kind of the beginning of cell phones. When he did this. And like I said, oh boy, I want to really cry now.
It's okay, you got this.
A lot of people, and I've had a lot of comments that not so good. A lot of people think that Curt was a drug addict. He was not a drug addict. Like I said,
think so.
No, the reason why he overdosed on cocaine was probably because it was laced with something, and two, it's because he wanted to take his own life. But I'm sure wherever he is, and we love you, Curt. If you can hear me, I love you. I love your wrestling. I love everything about you. Like I said, I probably would be Mrs. Curt Hennig. And I wish so much that I could have pulled him out of that dark place. If him and I had met and I had showed him what a great person he was, what a great wrestler, he's my hero, guys. I'll just say this in wrapping up here. Curt, you are my hero. I love you. And happy birthday.
Happy
birthday, brother.
Happy birthday, Curt.
Farewell. But you still make us smile to this day.
I wish I had a gum.
As you should.
I wish I had a piece of gum.
That's right. Because nobody beats Mr. Perfect. Nobody. And with that, we're going to end this segment because I'm not going to freaking cry anymore. So I want to thank everybody for coming. We got Kit, we got Angel, and we got Deconstructing. D, thank you guys so much for coming. Angel, thank you for coming. Kit, thank you for coming as always. And remember,
congratulations for your channel too.
Yes. We're almost at 20K, and that was my goal. My next goal is, of course, 50K, and then 1 million. Or 100K, and then we go to 1 million. I will have to think of something to do once we hit 20K, but it would definitely be something unique, probably maybe a pants check or something. So I just want to thank everyone for coming, everyone for listening, and like I said, if you can hear me, Curt Hennig, happy birthday, baby. You are great. Okay, you were great, and you will always be great. You are my hero. And everything else. And nobody beats Mr. Perfect. Nobody.
All right, folks.
That's right.
I'm out. Peace.